What's up? What's up? What's up, good people of the Vanguard community? Thanks for tuning in this afternoon to our first stream of the week. Really excited to break down the news over the weekend. A lot happened, so Zach and I are eager to report on it. How you doing, man?
Yeah, pretty good. Obviously, it's beautiful out in Kansas City today. Sun's shining, weather's nice, not too hot. So Gavin and I went out for a long walk this morning. It was good shit. Back to be in the seat and ready to do a show for the day. Yeah, like you said, a lot of shit happened this weekend. So there's a lot of fruitful things to discuss.
Yeah, very American weekend. We had multiple mass shootings happen. So pretty depressing stuff there. We might get into that a little bit. Something I wanted to start off the show with before we get into today's main topics, while we're just waiting for some comrades to trickle in, is the Pennsylvania Senate race, which is coming up. Before we get into that, did want to quickly shout out the patrons. Thank you guys so much for the support. As you all know, the link is in the description. So hit up that link in the description if you wanted to join the patron community. Really helps us create the content we do. Would not be able to do the show without you guys, as I always say. So hit that up if you would like to support. But yeah, I did want to briefly talk about this because the Pennsylvania Senate race is, days away now. At least the Republican and Democrat primaries are. And a really interesting aspect, I think, of this race, especially on the GOP side, has been the rise in prominence of Kathy Barnett, who I would kind of call the Marjorie Taylor Greene of Pennsylvania. Of course, there's some differences, but she really represents that more, unhinged, 100% down with Trump and all of his, policies and all of his eccentricities. So Kathy Barnett is really the base's choice, which is interesting because that's at odds with Trump himself's choice, that being Dr. Oz. I think a lot of people would explain Trump's endorsement of Oz simply because Trump feels that Dr. Oz has the best chance of winning in the general election, which may well be true. But again, the base seems to have other options in mind, namely Kathy Barnett, who is a little bit more in lockstep with their very just full bore, Republican populism, conservatism, whatever you want to call it. So this is a really interesting race. I think it's going to be fascinating to see what happens because it's really a three-way race between Oz and also this guy named David McCormick. And again, despite the fact that Trump endorsed Dr. Oz, a lot of Trump's hardcore base, a lot of the real hardcore conservatives actually do not like Dr. Oz. They think he's a rhino. They think he's, faking it just to get their votes. There's a lot of clips from the Dr. Oz show that have been resurfaced where he talks about Black Lives Matter or trans issues. And a lot of the Republican voters are trying to use this as proof that he's not a serious right winger, which is hilarious. Again, they're not really seemingly as into the culture or not really as much into the serious substantive economic policy as much as they are just leaning into these culture war issues, which has largely defined the entire Republican Party, at least since Biden got into the office. Anyway, I think this is interesting. What did you think?
Yeah, I think it's definitely a multi-pronged issue. I think for one of the interesting things about this is I think it does illustrate kind of how removed Trump has become from his base, how isolated he's become from his base, and how out of touch he is, right, with what is important to the people who were normally like his bread and butter supporters, right? And if you look at a guy like Donald Trump, I think the number one thing he values is name recognition, which would kind of explain his endorsement of Dr. Oz. That dude's been on TV. We all know how Donald Trump feels about the TV and what he thinks about people who are on TV and all those kinds of things. He likes the idea that they're popular, that they're known, that they're, quasi celebrities, and, he wants to be associated among them. So it made it made complete sense to me, rather, that he would endorse Dr. Oz, but it also is interesting to see the fact that he actually doesn't have as much sway with his base as he once did. It's not like, oh, Trump endorsed this guy, therefore we are going to project everything onto this guy that we've projected onto Donald Trump in, the same way that, we've seen happen in the past, right? People who were decidedly non-Trumpian getting the Trump treatment just because of their association with him. And so I think that shows that the base is actually moving away from him, and he's kind of created this wave or this like brand of politics that's almost actually become post-Trumpian. I think, like in the sense that like his America First rhetoric, his Pennsylvania First, like that's all over her like Twitter bio or her Twitter feed. This idea that she's taking those issues that Trump was able to use to like ignite his base, but I think it is slightly separated from Donald Trump himself now in a way that is interesting. And you can see the real fracture. I mean, we talk about all the time how the Democratic Party is really fractured, but I think this is a good example of almost the fracturing of the Republican Party. You have the old guard, the kind of guys that my mom would vote for, being like a Dr. Oz kind of a guy, like somebody who would nominally, say, oh, I do think Black Lives Matter, and I do, support trans people's rights to, live and exist nominally, right? But then in praxis, obviously, there's still Republicans. And then you have the Kathy Barnett wing, which is like the former Trumpian wing. And then you have, David McCormick is his name, right? Just seeming like he's like still Trumpian, but, kind of in the more in between of those two. So I think it's a really interesting kind of analysis or way of looking at the Republican Party, specifically through the Pennsylvania governorship race. And I think that if either of the two candidates besides Dr. Oz, I think you'll see a pretty clear path for John Fetterman to win the Senate race. I said governor race, I meant Senate race. And I think that he could still potentially beat Dr. Oz, but it might be a little more close.
Yeah, this really reminds me actually of Trump when he endorsed Tommy Tuberville in Alabama over Jeff Sessions for his reelection. A lot of the Trump base was not pleased by the fact that Trump did not get behind Jeff Sessions, who was like the original Trump Republican. And what this all really shows, what it really reveals, is that the America First movement is bullshit. It's nothing. It doesn't actually exist as a movement, because if it did, then Trump would be endorsing the America First candidates, not just the normie Republican candidates that pander to him the most, a la Dr. Oz. Obviously, Dr. Oz, is just a normal Republican for the most part. He's definitely leaning into a lot of these more Trumpian ideas and talking points. But Kathy Barnett is the candidate that actually aligns with Trump's America First vision, at least what he was talking about back in the 2016 era, and maybe a little bit less these days. But again, it just kind of shows you that this whole America First branding exercise is just that. It's not a serious movement. It's not a serious ideology, because again, Kathy Barnett is the more quote unquote America First, Trump Republican, and Dr. Oz got the Trump endorsement. So, there's a real disconnect there, which I think is pretty fascinating. Does look like we got a...
You want to ban this guy really quickly? Jesse Zach Batsu that's spamming like anti-Semitic shit.
Yeah. You got blocked. Anyway, huge shout out before we get into the next piece of news to Jonathan Boyle for the $10. Did you guys catch all the drama from last Thursday's Bad Faith podcast / call-in? Matt Stoller called the CCP the 21st century's Nazi party and got pushback from Bree and later Danny Haifong on call-in. Yes, Jonathan, I did catch all of that. Great episode of the debrief over on call-in from Brianna Joy Gray. Yeah, she had Matt Stoller on there, who's an interesting voice, not someone I always agree with. And they were talking about China a little bit, and Danny Haifong called in to give his pro-China spiel, essentially. And it resulted in quite a clash between Matt Stoller and Danny Haifong, which was fascinating to watch. So shout out to Bree for sanctioning that discussion and doing a really good job of moderating it. Because, obviously Matt Stoller and Danny Haifong are on two completely different sides of that issue. So really interesting to check that out.
Yeah, I need to watch that. I've read Matt Stoller's book, Goliath, but a lot of his political takes I don't necessarily jive with, right? I think he is really big on the hate China bandwagon, a little bit too much for my taste, in the same way that Danny Haifong is maybe a little bit pro-China for my taste. But yeah, that would definitely be a dank debate to check out, and I would definitely do that.
Yeah, I'd like to see Bree invite them both back onto Bad Faith to do an actual sanctioned debate that wasn't just kind of impromptu. I think that'd be fascinating. Although I don't know if Matt Stoller would be down, because he was basically like, I'm not about to sit here and debate a Holocaust denier, which is what he boiled Danny down to. So, who knows if he'd be interested in that, but I would still love to see it. Thank you also, Charles, for the $5. Really appreciate that. And thank you for the super chat, Charles. Do you ever consider interviewing Paul J., the analysis news of the Real News Network? I voted for Fetterman in PA, see a lot of Kathy Barnett signs. Would definitely be interested in interviewing Paul J. I'm a big fan of the Real News Network and the content they produce, so that's definitely something that would be in our alley. Would definitely be interested in chatting with him. And yeah, interesting segue about Fetterman, because the other big news as it relates to the Pennsylvania Senate primary is on the Democrat side, and that is that John Fetterman, the front runner in this race, did have a stroke over the weekend. As he posted here on Twitter, he says, on Friday, I wasn't feeling well, so I went to the hospital to get checked out. I didn't want to go. I didn't think I had to, but Gazelle Fetterman, who's his wife, insisted, and as usual, she was right. The good news is I'm feeling much better, and I'm on my full way to recovery. We can take a quick look at his 16-second video here to see what condition. Does he look sick? Does he look okay? Do you think he's going to be able to pull this off? Let's take a listen.
Hey everybody, it's John and Giselle. As you can see, we hit a little bump on the campaign trail.
It was on Friday. I just wasn't feeling very well, so I decided, you know what, I need to get checked out. So I went to the hospital.
You get checked out because I was right as always. Hey everybody, it's John.
So yeah, that was pretty funny. Sorry, let me pause that. I think he's, doing fine. Clearly, he looks okay. Obviously, this reminds us of Bernie Sanders' heart attack and his quick bounce back in the 2020 Democratic primary. We've talked at length about John Fetterman. I definitely think he's the best candidate in this race. He's definitely the most populist. He definitely is the closest to like a Bernie-crat kind of a candidate. So, if you're in Pennsylvania, if I was in Pennsylvania, I would probably vote for John Fetterman. That being said, my excitement about Fetterman did take a massive nosedive when he put out a really, really gross pandering statement about his opposition to BDS, which again, I just found, pretty much unconscionable. So super disappointed by his statement on BDS, but on almost every other issue, I still think he's the far and away best candidate on the Dim side.
Oh yeah, and I mean, if you compare him even to Dr. Oz, obviously that starts to make it a lot more of an easier calculation because like I said, or like you said, the guy has a lot that fucking we agree with down the line, even though it does seem like he's maybe not going to be like a progressive stalwart that we
were revolutionary.
Yeah, exactly. Somebody that's going to be. I mean, he was making some Andrew Yang calculations about his political positioning that I wasn't happy about either. So yeah, he looks good for having just had a stroke. Obviously the Bernie Sanders thing comes to mind, even though he's like half of Bernie Sanders' fucking age. So obviously it would make it easier for him to bounce back. It was, a big part of the Bernie Sanders story that he was able to just like walk fucking miles like 3 days after his heart attack. So hopefully, John Fetterman, has the same like speedy recovery. It looks like he's doing good. Probably was a minor stroke. Doesn't look like it like, a massive stroke or anything like that. So hopefully, it doesn't impact his, race or whatever, but it's definitely, he doesn't look like 100% back in that clip though. He still looks like he's a little bit like, it probably took a lot out of him. He looks like fucking exhausted.
Yeah, I think they're still at the hospital, when this was taken. So definitely true. And also it just has to be said, it's so funny how his body takes up like 80% of the frame here. And then his head, I just, again, regardless of a few political disagreements, I do just fuck with Fetterman. He has this presence about him that so few Democrats bring. So many Democrats on the national level just kind of come off as like these West Coast elitist kind of elites, very professional, very well coiffed and obsessed with how they present themselves. Fetterman is the opposite of that. He clearly doesn't really give a shit about his appearance. He just kind of throws on some hoodie or sweatpants or whatever the fuck and goes out there and does basketball shorts. Yeah, exactly. So he's definitely one of the more interesting, more kind of compelling figures on the Democratic side, which is sorely needing, charisma right now, given the fact that pretty much all the like rising stars in the Democratic Party are just the most like pathetic, elitist losers of all time. People like Pete Buttigieg, people like Kamala Harris. Fetterman definitely stands out from that kind of a crowd. If you just compare him to someone like Kamala Harris or Pete Buttigieg, who's just clearly obsessed with like their image and their career and, pandering to all the right demographics,
Did you see the Buttigieg crowd was like super pissed off over the weekend because it came out that Obama had like said that he couldn't be a president because he was gay and short, and I was like,
I didn't know if that was true though. Do you think is there actually proof Obama said that?
Who knows? But people were melting down about it. I just saw a headline that people were sharing that was like Pete Buttigieg can't be president because he's. I would imagine that sounds like something that Obama would say, right? I mean, it didn't. And if you kind of juxtapose that to here, let me find it really quick. We can move on. Okay. Yeah, Pete Buttigieg. Where the fuck was it? I guess I'm not seeing it right now, but. Yeah. Oh yeah, here it is. It's from the Independent, so I imagine it's real. Yeah, let me share my screen really quick. Here we go. So I trust the Independent. I think that it's probably legit. But either way, this came to my mind a little bit because it was like the meltdown that came after Bernie allegedly said that Elizabeth Warren would have a hard time winning because she was a woman, which is not something that Bernie Sanders, I don't believe he actually said that. He tried desperately to get Elizabeth Warren to run for president, so that would be inconsistent with his fucking entire career, basically. But I just thought that was kind of interesting.
Yeah, I mean, at very most in private, he was saying to her, like, we're probably going to be better off if it's a man than a woman. That's like the most, he possibly could have said. There's no way he told Elizabeth Warren, you shouldn't run because you're a woman. No way.
Especially after he got behind Hillary. No.
Yeah, exactly. And again, this is reported on by The Blaze, and I know you pulled up an independent article. So, who knows the legitimacy of this, but it reportedly Obama said that Pete couldn't win the presidency because he's gay and short, which is funny because let's be honest, the real reason why Pete Buttigieg can't win the presidency is because he looks like a goddamn rat. I mean, yeah, he's gay and yeah, he's short.
And he would govern like Obama.
Yeah. And also, like, I feel like the height thing is a little bit overrated because when you're running for, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but when you're running for president, I feel like, people aren't really paying that much attention to your height because you're always on TV. And when someone's on TV, you can't really tell how tall they are because they just kind of have the camera right in front of them. I guess at a debate stage, like someone might look a lot taller than someone else. But if that's actually a factor in people's decision-making process, then that's pretty silly.
Yeah. It doesn't look like in our lifetime we've had a president under 6 foot. So that's interesting to me. And I'm a short man, so I'm not talking shit, right? But it is what it is. Maybe I'll never be president. That's no skin off my back.
Well, you can be my VP. Don't worry. All right, but yeah, let's get into today's main topics. Thanks so much, Josh, for the $4.99. Now tuning in, what degree do you think someone like Tucker is culpable in radicalizing white supremacists like the Buffalo shooter? Well, we're going to try to stay away from today's more sensitive topics, but here you are forcing our hand, Josh. No, I'm just kidding. More than happy to weigh in on the subject matter. I think so. This is a complex situation. What I don't want to do is go down the path of every time something bad happens, blaming media figures or blaming media in general for their behavior. This is something liberals try to do all the time when it comes to like movies. You guys remember the Joker movie when that came out in 2019 and everyone was like, this is going to cause incels to go commit mass shootings and commit violent acts, et cetera, et cetera. And in the same way, I think Glenn Greenwald actually pointed this out. There was a shooter in 2016, I want to say, that shot a Republican congressperson or senator, and he was a big Bernie bro, and he really loved Rachel Maddow. So Glenn was making the point that, like, yeah, well, we shouldn't blame those people for the actions that this guy committed because he was a fan of them and he was a big subscriber to their ideology. So in the same way, we can't blame this shooter because he loved Tucker Carlson. That being said, I do think it's downright foolish and just I don't know the right word, but definitely foolish to completely deny the fact that Tucker Carlson's rhetoric was contributing to this and similar instances, right? So I don't think you can directly blame Tucker. Like, I don't think that, Tucker could in any way be held criminally liable in the same way that Bill O'Reilly, for example, could not be held criminally liable for the death of the abortionist George Tiller, I believe his name was, who Hannity or Bill O'Reilly referred to as Tiller, the baby killer, and then someone actually murdered the abortion doctor Tiller, and there was this whole discussion, should we blame Bill O'Reilly? And no, you can't legally hold someone responsible if they inspire a lunatic to go commit an act of violence. And I think that's the correct precedent to set, because again, what if we were talking about how we should bring out the guillotines and eat the rich, and then all of a sudden one of our lunatic fans went out and killed a rich person? We wouldn't be at blame for that. We were just talking shit. So I think you have to balance that with, at the same time, acknowledging that obviously the racist white supremacist rhetoric that Tucker Carlson platforms on a nightly basis and that he injects into our public discourse, I think it's stupid not to admit that, yeah, that's obviously harmful. It obviously helps contribute to events like this, and it should obviously be called out for what it is, which is white supremacy and racism. So, without being in any way unclear about that, I still think it's important not to set a precedent of completely blaming talk show hosts or commentators when lunatics do crazy shit.
Yeah, look, Tucker Carlson, I think, is like a ginormous piece of shit, and I do think that he pushes a lot of white supremacist talking points. He very clearly pushes the great replacement kind of talking point, where he says shit like legacy Americans, which is just the most clear as day, plain as fuck dog whistle for white people that feel like they're being replaced by quote unquote minorities. So the fact that he traffics in this, one, it has a lot to do with his fucking popularity. I'll tell you that much. People love that shit and eat it up because depressed, beaten down, the fuck white people need something to have their like material conditions be the fucking blame for, right? And it's not 100% white people, but if you look at the vast majority of Tucker Carlson's audience, it is white Americans, and I think that is entirely evident as soon as you watch any bit of or piece of his content, right? So it's clear with all of his framing on every single fucking issue that his priorities lie with white America, that his priorities lie with the concerns of the, ever more marginalized, like legacy American working class and all those kinds of things. So as Gavin said, you can't hold the guy criminally liable. He's allowed to say whatever the fuck he wants on his show. But anybody that's trying to cognitively twist themselves into a pretzel that Tucker's not a racist piece of shit, that he's not egging these people on, that he's not the kind of content that these people want to consume, that's just not the case, right? And you can be like, well, he's the most fucking popular news show. And yeah, that's because it's really popular right now to say a bunch of racist fucking like dog whistles because people are hurting, they're economically devastated. And what do we see every single fucking time a society starts to erode? We see it a scapegoat onto minorities and the most vulnerable people all the time. So I think all of those things play together, even though I'm not prepared to say that Tucker should be removed from the airwaves or whatever. No, but I do think it's important for people on the left to be like, yes, this is the kind of poisonous ideology. This is the kind of destructive talking points that are actively stewing up these kind of sentiments in the public, and that is almost undeniable. I think it would be incredibly difficult because the most explicit example being, you can take multiple transcriptions of Tucker Carlson's monologue, right? And then you'll see it's like the exact same thing that this shooter that comes out with an AR-15 that has the N-word written on the front of it drives all the way to a black neighborhood in Buffalo to shoot up a bunch of people. And what is he talking about? He's talking about the Great Replacement. He's talking about immigrants and taking over and the white majority becoming the minority, right? This is exactly what Tucker Carlson traffics in. And if I were Tucker and this is a scenario, I guess, where Tucker has a soul, he should feel a little remorse about this, but it is what it is.
Yeah, I'm sure he feels a lot of remorse, Zach. I'm sure he's really, taking the weekend to reflect on his ideology. I'm just kidding. But thank you so much, Josh, for the $4.99, and thank you, Charles, for the $5. Ron Paul had a stroke during his daily live show and was back a few days later. Yeah, it's definitely like you're pointing to. It's very possible, very easy to bounce back from a stroke. As scary as that is, having a stroke obviously is life-threatening. Kills a lot of people. But if you're able to get on it and get help, then yeah, it's pretty easy to bounce back, as we saw with Bernie and as Ron Paul did as well. So yeah, I'm not concerned about Fetterman. I still think he's going to absolutely starch Connor Lamb in Pennsylvania. So looking forward to seeing that. Again, even though Fetterman has his flaws, it's going to be fucking hilarious to see Connor Lamb just get obliterated, fucking destroyed. It's going to be like when Ed Markey just destroyed Joe Kennedy, who thought he could win that Senate race.
Bro, what a joke. Remember Joe Kennedy? Remember when he did the response to the State of the Union address after Donald Trump, and everybody was like trying to make him the guy and nobody fucked with him at all?
Yeah, and just like with Connor Lamb, he literally gave up his congressional seat in order to run for the Senate. So just like Joe Kennedy, Connor Lamb's about to be unemployed as fuck. So that's funny. To move on,
and completely irrelevant.
Yeah, total loser. Thank you so much, Donald. 18-year-old dudes are not listening to Tucker Carlson on Fox News. I mean, maybe not the majority of 18-year-old dudes, but I do think it's fair to say that Tucker appeals to a much younger demographic than other Fox News hosts. Like, for example, if you broke down the audience demographics of Sean Hannity, it's probably going to be mostly, dudes over 45. Whereas Tucker, I would imagine, has a lot more younger listeners. And even if young people aren't specifically listening to Tucker Carlson, he is the most influential right-wing radio or right-wing talk show host commentator. So obviously whatever he says is going to trickle down and be repeated by a lot of other people in right-wing media. So again, I think it is very important to call him out for spreading and infusing these white supremacist talking points into our national dialogue, even if he's not directly responsible. Like, even if you couldn't, directly hold him responsible, it's definitely he's at fault for infusing this kind of rhetoric into the mainstream.
Yeah, 100%. And I'm actually just going to pull up his demographics so that we could see it really quick, because, I've got right here his 25 to... In the 25 to 54 demographic, the show maintained an average viewership of just over 1 million. But from the 18 and if you drop it down to the next rung down, it says that an average show with 67 or 670,000 being between 18 and 49. If you go to just between 18 and 25 demographic, he's still pulling in over 250,000 nightly viewers. So I don't think it's nothing that you can't be like 18-year-olds aren't listening to Fox News, because the 18 to 25 demographic is doing big numbers for them. Not as big as the 65 plus numbers. But as Gavin pointed out, Tucker Carlson is uniquely positioned to reach the more younger mainstream crowd. Why do you think people like Jimmy Dore love to react to his content? Why do you think that a lot of people on the internet love to react to Tucker Carlson's content? Because he has a fucking audience of people who are on YouTube and on legacy media.
Yeah, and like I said, he's one of the most influential right-wing thought leaders. So even if people aren't directly listening to him, his ideas and his, perspective is going to trickle down and be repeated by, a huge amount of other people in right-wing media. So really what the problem is that he's infused the discourse, like I said, with these right-wing ideas. Even if the shooter never once listened to Tucker in his life, he's certainly heard Tucker's talking points being repeated by other right-wingers. But again, I don't want to go down this rabbit hole of being too black and white, too reductive with this, because a lot of people have also pointed out that this shooter in his manifesto had a lot of negative things to say about cryptocurrency, and actually cited a Jacobin article where it was talking about what a sham crypto is. So it's not like this is the super reductive, just like this was Tucker Carlson's fault. No, there was obviously a lot more going on here. This dude was probably deeply mentally ill. So there's a lot going on here, and I don't want to just be a reductive liberal that immediately politicizes every tragedy and tries to use it to score points against the other team or whatever. But at the same time, as I said, we have to be clear-eyed and very unapologetic and calling Tucker's rhetoric out for what it is, which is white supremacist racism, no doubt about it.
Yeah, and I think that's the best way to put it, right? You can understand and analyze what Tucker Carlson's popularity is coming from and what messages that he's giving to people. But at the end of the day, who's more at fault, right? Tucker Carlson, this guy who's making a living saying a bunch of bullshit to people on cable news, or is it the politicians that are not giving this guy access to adequate mental health? Is it the politicians that are fucking keeping us unable to regulate mass shootings, unable to keep us safe, right? The conditions of our society that create these fuckers constantly, that go on killing sprees in a way that happens in almost, I don't think, any other country, right? Our gun violence is just astronomically bigger, even on a per capita basis. So all of those things have to be said are probably bigger contributors, right, than Tucker Carlson. But what I just want to get out there, and I think Gavin wants to get out there too, is that, people aren't wrong to say that Tucker Carlson is espousing these kinds of ideas, because he is, and that is a definite part of what attracts his audience. But it's also too black and white, too easy to just be like, see, this is your fault, because it's like, well, there are a lot of other things you could point to blame with a lot more credibility, and also just the fact that you can't police somebody's speech like that in America, even if they are, being, fucking ridiculous or terrible.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess we can segue into our next show, or our next topic rather, which is a little bit about Joe Rogan. I just realized that I don't have the specific right thread pulled up. Zach, do you have that Reddit thread that we were reading off earlier with all the comments?
From Joe Rogan?
Yeah, with everyone taking shit all over him. Yeah, I have the video here, or a couple videos rather. But I know that there's a specific one that we wanted to talk about. Is it this one in the folder?
I've got it right here. You just pull my screen up.
Okay, cool. So yeah, Joe Rogan over the weekend, or over the last week or so, has made a series of comments that quite a few people have found objectionable, specifically, though, people in his own community, specifically people in his own subreddit. So again, this isn't just a bunch of like pearl clutching, hand wringing liberals that want to do gotchas. No, these are people that have been watching the Joe Rogan Experience for years and years. I mean, to the point that they found it necessary to join the Joe Rogan subreddit. You know, that certainly signifies a level of fandom that most people wouldn't meet. You know, most people aren't in someone's subreddit if they're not a pretty big fan of that person. You know, if you're on Reddit, you know what I'm talking about. So I thought this was interesting, the way that Joe Rogan's own community that he's built over years is now responding to some of his recent comments. And again, you know, we've talked about on the show a lot how Joe Rogan is made out to be this boogeyman. He's made out to be this scapegoat oftentimes, especially by the liberal media. And it creates this impression in people's mind that he's like this crazy, unhinged, racist person. And while he definitely has, you know, a number of problematic opinions, Zach and I have pushed back on that over the years because we do think I personally think has been a little bit hyperbolic. And I think, again, he kind of gets made out to be this boogeyman that he's not, when a lot of people just watch him because he kind of comes off like your average middle of the road dude that can
your average Joe.
Yeah, exactly. They can entertain opinions coming from the right wing or the left wing. So again, you know, we've defended the guy in the past before when we think he's been unfairly attacked. But to be honest, guys, it's getting harder and harder to defend Joe Rogan as a left winger. And this is coming from someone, too, that was myself a big fan of Joe Rogan, like a lot of other people on this subreddit, going back years now. Years and years, you know. I used to really, really enjoy tuning into Joe Rogan, not really even because of his political commentary. You know, I never thought his political commentary back in the day was like totally unpalatable like it is now. But what I really went to the Rogan show for back in the day more was like hearing about aliens or talking about Bigfoot or talking about JFK, conspiracy theories, stuff like that. Like him and a buddy just smoking on a fat blunt, talking shit, you know, going down these crazy rabbit holes. That's the kind of stuff I like, you know, that's the kind of stuff I like. And if he still made that kind of content, when he does make that kind of content, I usually still check it out. Like if I see a video pop up where it's like Joe Rogan and fill in the blank talk about the UFOs, I'm going to click that shit. I like to hear those conversations as much as the next man. But what I think a lot of people are realizing is that over the years, as Joe Rogan has waded more and more into politics, now he's kind of just on this reactionary right-wing train of thought where it seems like all of his takes just like they sound like borderline like Fox News, really cringy right-wing talking points, not a lot of thought behind them, not seemingly a lot of like introspection or questioning of his guests when they make outrageous statements like he would occasionally do back in the day. It seems like a lot more nonsense is just permitted on the JRE now,
unless they say trans people should have rights.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But anyway, this clip in particular, I found to be pretty indefensible, guys. This is downright disgusting, if you ask me.
Yeah, and really quickly before I play this, I just wanted to add that, you know, a lot of people say, like, why do you and Gavin say that the energy is on the right wing now? Why do you guys say that the energy used to be on the left and now all of these shows are moving right wing because that's where the internet's energy is? Just while we watch these couple of clips, guys, I want you to think about Joe Rogan's commentary circa 2016, circa 2018, right? How left it was, how people were always pointing out his left wing ideas, and see if that's changed. See if you can honestly, if you just honestly receive this media, see if you can notice a difference in how he's talking about these ideas from a way that he used to when the energy was on the left versus now when it's very, very much on the right.
Anxiety today. You know, it's this Roe versus Wade thing. I saw it in the news and I need a mental health day. Right. Fuck you. Show up at work. Show up at work and work harder. Get the fuck out of here.
You need to be a bit more animated, Joe.
I get so crazy about it because I know what it is. You have a high level of anxiety today. You know, it's this Roe versus Wade thing. I saw it in the news and I need a mental health day. Right. Fuck you. Show up at work. Show up at work and work harder. Get the fuck out of here.
You need to be a bit more.
Yeah, that sounds like a left winger to me, guys. That sounds like somebody I want to hang out with, or should I guess I shouldn't have stopped sharing my screen so you guys can take a look at the comment section. But it's just astronomical, right? That guy that he's talking to right now is a right wing hack. I think it looks like Gad Sad. Yeah, if you guys listen to any of the Gad Sad episodes of Joe Rogan, you're gonna be like, holy shit, this guy is fucking nutcase, right? And Joe like just loves it, basks in the fucking bullshit framing of every single fucking issue. But compare his talking points right now, issue of 100% of body autonomy, right, guys? Hello, shut the fuck up and go to work. That sounds like a fascist. Joe sounds like a straight up fascist in this clip. Oh, don't exercise your rights. Oh, don't be pissed off that the government just took away one of your fundamental rights. Oh, to your own sovereignty over your own fucking body. An issue, by the way, Joe Rogan has pretended to give a shit about time and time again, right? Oh, I don't want the vaccine. Oh, I don't want the government telling me what to do with my body. Mama. Wait. Oh, now we need to shut the fuck up and go take a nap because this isn't a right-wing talking point, right? Because this isn't going to be something that stews up your new fucking base of, this is, I mean, it's just a complete 180, right? And if you want to give the guy the most credit and say he's not just doing this to build up his fucking platform, then you have to say that he is so fucking removed from society, so fucking isolated now, so rich, so fucking I don't give a shit, that he's literally just become an aristocrat fascist that wants to see people sweat and toil and not protest when the government fucks them. I mean, it's complete bullshit. This is despicable from Joe, and every single time I watch it, it makes me upset because I also used to be a longtime JRE listener. I fucking used to defend the guy. I've been listening to this show since like 2014, guys. Like I've been around. I was a diehard listener in the like 2015, 2016 era, and I feel like the show has been on a steep decline really since it peaked in like 2017, right? He got some really good, interesting interviews in that era, and then it was started to go downhill, and then he sold to Spotify, and it was just like fucking tanked down. But this is the first example that we'll give you of Joe Rogan just 100% going for the right wing red meat.
Yeah, really sad to see. And as you said, Zach, I mean, I'm sure you remember back when he would talk about the concept of bullshit jobs and how people were toiling away at their occupation for the entire day, wasting their life doing nothing. Compare that to here where he's like, get back to work, go the fuck to work. Why are you complaining about going to work? It's crazy. It feels like we're only a few right-wing talking points away from him saying that, cannabis makes you dumb. You know what I'm saying? Like, where is this going, man? Where's the bottom of this pit? Let's take a look at some of the comments. This one is the top comment, or at least one of the top comments. It says, I've never commented on this sub before, but as a listener since 2013, what the fuck happened to this man? He is a very different person in all the worst ways. And again, I mean, I still occasionally find value in listening to Joe Rogan's content, mostly when he's talking about UFOs or, interviewing someone that I really am interested in hearing from. But for the most part, yeah, I would say 95% of the time I tune into the Joe Rogan Experience, I have the exact same thought, this exact same reaction. And this is a sentiment you see a lot throughout the Joe Rogan subreddit, not just on this thread. But if you subscribe to the r/Joe Rogan, you will see this comment repeated over and over and over again. And that's that, a lot of his old fans, the kind of 2013 era fans, feel exactly this way. This comment says, there's a lot of us out here. Joe grew his base by tapping into the Alex Jones well of fans. Old fans versus new fans are very different. Old fans are scratching their head and fishing for tasty crumbs of some of the old stuff, but the recipe has changed and most tastes awful. This one says he moved to Texas and slowly surrounded himself with the most reactionary, unabashedly partisan, and faux intellectual kind of people. Money and criticism. He dug a trench so deep in Republicans' camp he'll never get out. So this is kind of referencing audience capture. He leans so far into the right wing that now the majority of his audience is right wing, and they're going to call him out if he ever deviates from their perspective, et cetera, et cetera. Here's a good comment that kind of speaks to exactly the hypocrisy you were just talking about, Zach. Joe, during COVID, mental health is extremely important. We need everything open, and the government telling you what to do with your body by forcing vaccines is authoritarian. Joe, during Supreme Court overturning Roe v. Wade. LOL, fuck you and your mental health. Just work, you stupid cog. And the government telling you what to do with your body is no big deal, you pussies. And that's not even really hyperbolic. That's almost exactly what he said. It's not even like they're making it out to be worse than what he said. He basically did say, fuck you and your mental health. Go to work, you stupid bitch. And that's essentially what he said.
Yeah. And don't forget, pre-COVID, Joe says work is dumb and people should quit their 9-to-5 job and follow their passion like he did with comedy acting. Why don't people quit their 9-to-5? How can people work a soul-crushing job in an office / people should quit and become a comedian or a podcaster? Yeah. No, he's completely changed, guys. He has fundamentally changed his outlook on life. Now, maybe if he'd had a fucking stroke or like some cataclysmic event in his life, like maybe something happened that we don't know about that could be the catalyst for this. But it just seems like when all of these things are happening at once, all these YouTube channels are slowly changing their fucking commentary from supporting the left and supporting leftist ideology and taking care of the community and a broad social safety net. Like I remember the last time Joe Rogan, and I don't know if we'll ever see Eddie Wong back on the Joe Rogan podcast, but that was one of my favorite old school guests. And I remember that they had the first argument ever about UBI, and Joe's like, oh, people are going to be masturbating in the streets and fucking going crazy and all this kind of stuff. And then, over time, he had Andrew Yang on, he had Eddie Wong back on multiple times. Like, they argued it and Joe would be like, no, I agree with you. Now that's no longer a popular sentiment to hold. He's abandoned it. And he's just gone on to talk about how people need to shut the fuck up and quit being pussies and conquer their inner bitch and whatever. And, oh, by the way, just get this supplement from Onnit. Each and every Joe Rogan episode is brought to you by Onnit. Make sure you get this alpha brain so you can think like me. Make sure you get this fucking X, Y, or Z so you can be all tough and shit. Like, it's just, I don't know. It's a downward spiral.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate. And like I said, it's not like he's just throwing out a conservative idea or talking point here or there. It seems like his actual ideology has changed to this kind of cringy, like Fox News pro-corporate ideology where, people should go to work. People shouldn't have the free time to start their own podcast, for example. No, they should be reporting to their job and spending the week there instead of with their family, which is something that at least the, populist Republicans are in favor of or pretend to be in favor of. People like Sagar and Jetty, for example, will talk about how, no, the right wing should actually be more pro-family in a serious way. They should actually let people take more time off their jobs so they can spend that time with their family. Again, the right wing always pretends to be pro-family, but saying go to work, get your ass to work, that's actually not a pro-family position at all. That's saying you should take time away from your family to go make money for some capitalist ghoul who's probably friends with Joe Rogan. You know what I'm saying? So it's really unfortunate to see that shift because, again, you can't even say that he's like just transitioned to a more of a populist Republican. No, it seems like he's just a Republican. These talking points just sound like fucking Glenn Beck or like Sean Hannity. I'm not even kidding. It's that bad. And if you guys aren't sold yet, if you don't think that that's accurate to say, let's take a listen to this one because I might have found this one even worse. You guys might remember the Joe Rogan championed UBI for a while. He had Andrew Yang on the podcast, and as Zach just talked about, he was basically convinced of the idea by Eddie Wong, right? Who kind of sold him on the idea of UBI. Well, let's take a listen to how his opinion has evolved on that subject matter. This was down again. This is like unrecognizable to me. This Joe Rogan is not someone I particularly recognize. Let's take a listen here and break it down because again, this is an issue that's near and dear to my heart as someone that avidly supports UBI and held up the fact that Joe Rogan did too as proof that he wasn't just a total reactionary Republican. So let's take a listen.
What's the monthly payment stuff that they're gonna come out with?
Universal
basic income.
I just think that was a good idea before the pandemic. During the pandemic, when everybody's getting the money from the government, people didn't want to work, and I was like, oh, this is not good.
Yeah,
this is not smart.
Well, that's what they wanted. They wanted the universal basic. That's what they want is universal basic income, and then
Joe realized he wasn't gonna have enough servants when he went out if people stayed.
$1,000 per month universal basic income pilot program on Austin City Council agenda.
Yeah.
Those dudes are just going to do a lot of coke.
It's a small amount of people.
85 families.
Yeah.
I'm not accusing those 85 families of being cokeheads. But I think for families that are struggling, that's one thing. But for everybody, like they were going to give it to every person.
Yeah.
It's going to be like a free thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it has to come with.
Oops, I'm muted. Yeah, by the way, just to quickly rebut that point, that's like saying, oh, we should only give like Medicare, for example, to senior citizens who are struggling. The ones that are fine, oh, they don't need Medicare. They don't need this government social service. But it should only be for the struggling people. That's totally ridiculous. It's the exact same thing with universal basic income. first of all, the fact that it's universal will automatically make it more popular because people won't just be able to call it a welfare program if everyone gets it. But also it just makes the most sense because when you means test things, it ends up cutting out a lot of people from the benefits that do need it, that just don't technically qualify. So means testing, services like this is a terrible idea. And I don't think that Joe Rogan would say the same thing about Social Security. I don't think he would say the same thing about Medicare. And apparently he supports Medicare for all. So I don't really see how it's a different proposition. And you could make the same argument against Medicare for all. You could say that, well, if people don't have to get their Medicare through their job, if they don't have to get insured and get their coverage through their occupation, then they're not going to go to work. They're just going to be lazy because they already have that taken care of. You can make the exact same argument for healthcare that he's making for UBI, and he doesn't seem to see any sort of hypocrisy there.
Yeah, and not only that, it's all of this like right-wing, hyper-capitalist, pull yourself up by your bootstraps framing, right? Because I might dare to ask, Joe, what do all your rich fucking friends do every day? Are they going to 95s? Are they 9 to 5s? Are they humping? What are your kids gonna do when they turn 20? Are they gonna be out there humping fucking 9 to 5s at Walgreens, Joe? I don't think so. I don't think you're gonna send your kid to go work at McDonald's when they turn 18 so they can pay their rent, right? So it's this idea that poor people who haven't been successful, it is their fault, right? He wants them to internalize their fucking failure. Because guess what, Joe? People don't want to work at the fucking gas station all day, Joe. And guess what? The circumstances of their lives that were way outside of their fucking control prevented them from seizing on opportunities. And maybe some of it was their own fucking fault. Turns out I don't give a shit, right? I would rather fucking lift all of the boats. And okay, maybe there's some guys that just want to jerk off and smoke pot all day in their apartment. Is that the worst thing in the world? Let's get rid of poverty. Let's make sure no child's going hungry. Let's make sure that moms aren't stressed the fuck out because they got to take care of their kids single-handedly, right? Let's eradicate all of that. But sorry, Joe, you're right. We can't have that because then some dudes might be staying at home, jerking off, living off the government. Go fuck yourself. That's what you do, Joe. Jerk off and smoke weed and talk shit just like me. So we can't really fucking finger wag at people, except you have $100 fucking million and I've got like 25 G's to last me a year, right? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not going to finger wag at some guy that doesn't want to go sell his soul to tear tickets at AMC. Fuck you. Nobody should have to do, like, if you don't want to, right? We need to create systems that eliminate poverty. We need to create systems that encourage people to thrive, right? You know what I'm saying? And also just if we would have kept with the amount of ownership that would have been with the working class 100 years ago, right? Or slightly past 100 years ago, because 100 years ago was like right around the Great Depression. Anyway, if you take that, or slightly longer than that ago, so if you take the golden era of the worker and you accelerate the amount of productivity that we've had, like we should all be working way fucking less anyway. Like the UBI pays for itself with the innovation that we've seen happen over the past 100 years, except for the fact that it's all been vacuumed up by a bunch of Joe's friends.
Yeah, and also, I mean, we can make the money appear if we want to. We just $40 billion just materialized to go right into the pockets of Raytheon and Lockheed. I think we could come up with the money to
only cost
out
$20 billion to get rid of homelessness.
I know, yeah. So I think we could definitely come up with the money to send people a check every month. And yeah, it's totally ridiculous to say, oh, without it, people aren't going to work. Again, you could make the same fucking argument about healthcare. If you don't have to, go to your job and get healthcare through your job, then no one's going to work. Well, guess what? Who fucking cares? People deserve the right to healthcare. It's a basic human right. It's ridiculous to say that your ability to live should be tethered to your occupation, something which is not always totally consistent, something which is not always stable in people's lives. So yeah, totally ridiculous. Let's take a listen to the rest of this before we move on.
Like, if I were to do a program, it would be more like a job program. Like, I'll pay you while you get these marketable skills, while you train in these marketable skills, but I'm not going to pay you to just like
do nothing.
Yeah.
There's a certain amount of entitlement that people have today that they just did not have before, where they feel like the government owes them something, regardless of how little or how much they put into the system. They feel like the government owes them something. So when you say to those people,
literally every other developed country in the entire world offers people basic services, to say like, oh, I'm entitled to my taxpayer money going back to me towards helping me and my community. That's not entitlement at all. To not be demanding those services from your own taxpayer money would be Ridiculous. Then you're just giving the government a blank check. You're saying, yeah, here's my tax money. Do whatever you want with it. Do whatever you want with it. All these people are advocating for is that their tax money goes back to helping them in their community, which is the whole point of paying fucking taxes.
Yeah. What the fuck else is the point of a government, Joe, if not to serve the people? The government serves you. The government serves us. If we don't serve the fucking government, we don't serve the United States. This isn't a fascist country. This isn't a country where everybody just sweats and toils for Mother USA. Fuck that shit. This is supposed to be a democracy. Mother USA toils for us, bitch. We pay the bill and it gets going. And instead, we have wasted all of our fucking money destroying a bunch of countries overseas in the Middle East, ruining the lives of hundreds of thousands, if not millions of individuals with our weapons and our warring and our military instead of reinvesting that back into the people. All Gavin and I are saying is let's take that fucking money that's being spent 100% on destruction and let's spend it on uplifting our fucking country. And then what we have left, that's what we'll use as our actual defense and not our offense budget.
Exactly. And of course, the funny thing is that UBI is actually a fairly pro-capitalist position in the sense that what do you think people are going to do with that money you gave them? They're going to go fucking spend it. They're going to go funnel it right back into the goddamn economy, which would help this country. So it's crazy. Anyway,
Milton Friedman wanted UBI.
Well, hey, what do you think about universal basic income? Everybody gets $1,200 a month. They're like, yeah, we deserve it. You should fucking give us the money, man. You know, they start thinking goofy.
And then you get inflation.
Right.
Right?
That's not good.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is the biggest horseshit right there ever. By the way, that is not how you get inflation. All of the oligarchs that I'm sure Joe Rogan rubs elbows with, that's how you get fucking inflation.
yeah, again, it seems like Rogan's about like 2 talking points away from saying that marijuana makes you lose IQ points or something. You know what I'm saying? Also, just look at his fucking face. Come on, bro. But yeah, this is disgusting. It's anti-worker. It's pro-corporation. Fuck you, dude.
It's all the TRT in his brain.
Increases in salaries too.
Right.
Cost of living, and then
Cost
you
of
have
living.
supply shortages, so things are more expensive.
Yeah.
Harder to get.
Okay,
I mean,
so inflation already is happening. The cost of living already is going up. That's why we need UBI, you fucker, because people can't afford the cost of housing anymore. They can't afford the cost of basic human necessities. Why do you think people are advocating for a UBI, motherfucker? It's not because a UBI would create inflation. It's because inflation is happening already regardless. We can do nothing or we can help people. Those are the options. People are saying maybe we should help people. And he's like, no, that'll make it worse.
Also, he thinks the poor people are the landlords and the developers. You think that's what's making rent increases? Are you dumb as fucking potatoes? Do you have 3 rocks for your brain? Like, I don't understand how, like you've shown the ability to critically think in the past, which is why it just frustrates me. I'm talking in first person to Joe. The fucking fact that he pretends that he doesn't understand this shit. Like, what are you talking about, dude? You think that poor people are the reason that rent is getting more expensive? That's why he won't have a motherfucker with our politics that's ready to fight with him on his show. Because nobody in their right mind that cares about their career in media would go on Joe Rogan's show and call him a fucking idiot when he says something like that. Be like, are you fucking dumb? Like, do you really believe that it's poor people that are making rent increases go up? Do you really think it's poor people that's causing inflation? What evidence do you have to support that? Under another fucking president, we were getting $600 a week of fucking unemployment. You think that's what caused this whole fucking supply chain issue? That's what you're saying? You think that the government giving extra money to people during a global pandemic when they couldn't fucking work is what caused this meltdown? No, it's so obviously patently untrue, right? It is rich businesses trying to, guess what, make more money. How come it's inflation when you say that, oh, year over end, even last year we made 40 fucking more $1 billion at this place, right? Well, it's because they raised their fucking prices and they didn't give a fuck. And also, the big part of inflation that nobody wants to talk about is the fact that because the wealth gap is so dramatic in America, right? Even the top half of the country has so much more. Top 40% has so much more than the bottom 60%, right? That companies can actually charge more, cut out those people with very limited buying power, and then just still make up the entire difference by selling it to other rich people who have gotten a big chunk of the pie, right? So that's it is rich people that cause inflation, okay? It is poor distribution of wealth, it is capitalism, and it is the concentration of assets and resources. So that's what causes inflation, and it has absolutely nothing to do with poor people that are going to get a UBI from the government, okay? And it is absurd and I think, dishonest for him to frame it this way. I think he knows better.
You guys get $1,200. What's going to happen to your rent?
I don't think it's a good idea to give everybody $1,200. I think some people need a fire lit under their ass. And if you want to make more exceptional people in this country, I don't think the way to do that is to give everybody $1,200.
No.
You need to be starving and hungry, unlike me. While I'm sitting in my fucking mansion, and I'm going to tell you about what you need to get a fire lit under your fucking ass. And also, I will say this, Joe, I want to see your kid working at McDonald's on their 18th birthday without a goddamn cent from you. Okay? Yeah, let's see if that happens.
Yeah, and I've told this story a couple times on the podcast, but this is actually something that, you know, I have direct experience which contradicts this bullshit line of logic. I had a real job. I worked at a pizza place before the pandemic started, grueling away for probably less than $10 an hour. I don't remember what I got paid exactly. I think $8 or $9 an hour. So again, the kind of job that Joe Rogan would approve of. I was going to work, working hard, and barely making ends meet as a result. However, once the pandemic started, I lost that job and I started getting unemployment, $600 a month. What did that give me? Sorry, $600 a week, not a month. That was in addition to the stimulus checks. What did I do with that time on my hands, that extra time on my hands and that extra money in my pocket? It's not like I just went out and spent it on fucking porn and crack cocaine. No, I directly reinvested that money into buying the supplies that made this show possible. Zach and I started the Vanguard during the pandemic when I was on unemployment, when we were both getting those $1,000 stimulus checks, and neither of us were having to report to a normal 9-to-5 job. Again, that gave us the time and the extra money necessary to do exactly what Joe Rogan does for his money, to start a podcast. If you're spending all day at work and super stressed out about making ends meet, you're not going to have the time, the energy, or the money necessary to start a podcast or to start any sort of a small business, which is what this is. And that's the American dream, right? Is being able to make money doing what you want, start a business that you want to operate. So again, it was only because of socialism. It was only because of basically what was a universal basic income that made Zach and I's American dream possible. Again, I would still be, you know, the cashier at Minsky's Pizza making $10 an hour if it weren't for basic income, if it weren't for these socialist policies.
Oh, come on, Gavin. You could have been a delivery driver by.
Yeah, exactly. I would have worked my way up the fucking chain. Maybe now I'd be getting paid $12.50 an hour, right? So this is just mind blowing because again, my life, Zach and I's life, is proof that these policies don't just make people lazy. Again, I didn't just go spend that money on weed or booze or whatever. No, I reinvested it into being able to do what I want to do for a living, which is this podcast. Again, a small business that Zach and I run. That's what Americans are supposed to do. They're not supposed to just become cogs in the machine, working some shitty job that they hate for some menial pittance of money. That's ridiculous. And again, I don't think Joe Rogan understands that. I just don't think he understands that. Again, no one has time to pursue their actual passions when all their time, money, and energy is being sucked away by some bullshit 9-to-5 job that they hate and dread going to.
100%. And I think it just shows that you cannot be this removed from society and still have good takes. You cannot have $100 million and a bunch of yes men trying to suck your dick 24/7 and still maintain this like solid foundational understanding of what it's like to be a normal person. So there's, I mean, that's what it is, right? Joe is like the Beatles of podcasting. He is like the first, like he did it bigger than anybody's ever done it. He made it blow it up into the, you know, real world. And he's got a bunch of motherfuckers that want to ride his coattails, right? Like, what's his name? Fuck. He has the, Mark Maron. Mark Maron actually used to have a bit about how there was like 35 comedians and they all went and carved out a home in Joe's asshole. And that's how they've built their entire career. And they all have comedy specials on Netflix now. And it's like, it's true, man. It is so true. And obviously his bit is really funny if you listen to it. And I like Mark Maron. But it is true that you can only get so big before you just completely lose touch.
Yep. Pretty crazy stuff. Really unfortunate to see Joe Rogan just completely insulating himself in this right-wing gutter of dog shit talking points. Again, I genuinely thought he was better. I genuinely thought he was smarter. I always considered someone I disagreed with on a lot. But I never just took him for like a Fox News fool, just a fucking right-wing dunce repeating like Sean Hannity level talking points. It's really depressing to see, you know, and also I think it's worth mentioning the fact that he used to talk a lot about cannabis legalization and how outrageous it is that people get locked up for smoking weed. Then he moved to Texas, where people do get locked up for smoking weed. Doesn't stop him. He's obviously, smoking all day, every day on his show, as everyone has the right to. But he never calls out his own state like he called out his old state of California for their bad policies. Why aren't you ranting against Greg Abbott and the conservative fascists in your home state of Texas for locking up people for doing what you do on camera to an audience of hundreds and thousands? So just another example of hypocrisy that rubs me the wrong way personally. But yeah, pretty disappointing stuff from Rogan lately. And again, take a look at his subreddit if you haven't. It's interesting to see the reactions from, again, people like Zach and I who have been fans of Rogan for more than just the last 2 years, since pre-Spotify, and how people are taking this new turn. It's really interesting to see. We do want to address a couple super chats before we move on to our next segment, our final segment of today's stream. So thank you so much, JFLO Productions, for the $4.99. Thank you so much. Why do all American normies confuse leftists with liberals? In Europe, an American liberal would be considered right wing. Why? It's because our media enforces this binary on us that there's the left, which is the Democratic Party, and the right, which is the Republican Party. And most people that don't, consume political content outside of the very basic mainstream media channels, they just kind of fall into that binary again. So they think of, the liberals and the Democrats as being the left, and they think of the GOP as being the right. And it's kind of as simple as that to a lot of people. Again, just because they're not paying super close attention and they're not all, in deep on all the minutia of political labels and all that stuff. But, that's a basic explanation, but it's definitely annoying because as someone that is on the actual left, I hate being grouped in with fucking Rachel Maddow and Kamala Harris and all these people.
Yeah, I mean, it is a linguistic technique that is used all the time in America to move the goalpost, right? Libertarianism internationally in Europe, right? If you call yourself a libertarian, people assume you're talking like anarcho-socialist, Peter Kropotkin kind of, Noam Chomsky kind of leftist libertarian, right? But you do that in America, it's code for the most hardcore anarcho-capitalist, like anti-government positioning, right? And that changes the goalpost, right? It's a little linguistic twist that changes the conversation and sets it back into where the United States power structures are comfortable, right? So yeah, if the left is still the right, then you really only have two right-wing parties, and that's the whole game here. But yeah, thank you so much for the $5 donation, JFL. Good to hear from.
Yeah, thanks so much, man. Also, thank you very much, Cosmo Kramer, for the $5. You guys should live stream the Senate UFO hearing tomorrow. Yeah, I'm not 100% sure when that is, but if it's during the time period that we normally are streaming during, we'll definitely comment on it because I am excited to discuss that and see what, if any, findings are revealed. Some people are really hyping this up. There's a Newsweek article that I'm looking at right now that's titled "Pentagon to Reveal Truth About UFOs in Rare Senate Hearing." So again, some people think there might be like a big, a big drop of information. Like, hey guys, just so you know, UFOs, aliens, they're fucking real. Who knows? Probably not going to be that dramatic, but I'm excited.
Yeah, hopefully we get some good information. I'm not holding my breath though.
You're not?
No, I think that most likely it's going to be.
Don't worry. But yeah, thank you so much, Cosmo Kramer, for the $5. Thank you also, Nazer Farod. Really appreciate the $4. Sorry if I mispronounced your name, sir. I hate how many lefty commentators defend Rogan just so they can have a chance of getting on his pod. Pathetic. Guy's not far right, but deaf, a moron. I think it annoys a lot of people. And if you want proof of that, go check out the Secular Talk subreddit. One of the biggest criticisms of Kyle Kalinske on his own subreddit is the fact that he doesn't usually call out Joe Rogan in the same way he would another comparable right winger with as big of a platform. And that's fair. Obviously here at the Vanguard, we have no bars held or no holds barred here. We're going to criticize anyone and everyone. And obviously we don't have any illusions that we would ever get on the fucking Joe Rogan experience. Obviously that's not going to happen. But even if that was a possibility, it wouldn't prevent us from being honest about our opinions about the guy.
Could have gotten on the Jimmy Dore show if we'd kept our mouths shut, but obviously we went that road. So that's like the micro version of that.
Very true. And honestly, at this point, it's like, we're a left-wing channel. I don't even really know how much going on the Joe Rogan show would help our numbers. Like I don't really think most people in his audience would like what we have to say or care. Ben Burgess went on the Joe Rogan Experience, and it's not like his YouTube subscribers shot up or his views shot up. No, not at all. In fact, most people on the left just bitched because he went on there in the first place. So, I don't really think it would help most people on the left unless they just really like destroyed him and everyone, made hay of that. But yeah, it is obviously what's it called? Access journalism is always annoying. It always rubs people the wrong way. And as a Kyle Kalinske listener myself, yeah, I do find it a little bit annoying when he obviously like omits criticism just because he knows it would get under his good friend Joe's skin.
Yeah, with all of those times that Kyle's been on the JRE recently.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, thank you so much for the $5. Thank you also, Kelly, for the $9.99. Rogan straight up needs to shut the fuck up. Agreed. These protests were popping off. People young and old, men and women alike, were out there protesting. San Francisco particularly was a sight to behold. It's pretty wild. Yeah, again, and he should be out here cheerleading these protests. If there was a protest that big about the vaccine, then I bet Joe Rogan wouldn't have been saying, shut the fuck up and get back to work.
Yeah, I don't remember him saying that about the truckers, but maybe I missed it.
Exactly. Thank you so much, John, as well, for the $5. Show up at work and work harder, says man who gets 100 million to have conversations a few days per week. Also, reminder, Joe Rogan mocked paternity leave. We covered that at the time. And yeah, that's obviously the ultimate irony here, is that this is a guy that gets paid literally over $100 million to smoke weed and talk shit and do exactly the things he fear mongers that people will end up doing if they don't have to go to a real job. So that's what's hilarious.
Yep. Yeah, it's pretty ridiculous.
Yeah. Got a few more super chats, I believe.
Also, I'm really curious how much Kyle Kalinske actually did change Joe Rogan's mind, because I would give you $100 that the next time somebody like Gad Sad is on his podcast and they bring up how paternity leave is terrible because it's bad for business, and then he's like, yeah, I've heard conflicting arguments about that, but I think I'm mostly with you. People need to shut the fuck up and go to work. Like, I don't think that Kyle has meaningfully changed his mind on that at all.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm trying to find the next super chat. We got so many comments. Thank you so much for the $1 Bimkey. Really appreciate that. Thank you, Zachary. Breaking according to Socialist MMA, America's invading. What is that? Yeah, I'm not exactly sure what you're talking about, so we'll maybe get back to that in a second. But thank you for the $2. Thank you for the $5, Bimkey, Joe.
I wouldn't be surprised if we're doing a ground operation in Somalia. That's fucked up.
Yeah, I don't want to say anything when I have no information at my fingertips. So obviously I'll have to do some research on that and get back to you guys. But yeah, I guess something's going down in Somalia. Anyway, thank you
the
for
information we do have is that is the Somalia.
Okay, yeah. Anyway, thank you so much for the $5. Bimkey, Joe probably had to wait too long at a Del Taco or something, and they got his order wrong. Yeah, honestly, that's about where we're at now. If only they hadn't got these $1,000 checks, then people would be at Del Taco giving me my fucking food and when I want it, how I want it. As it is now, I have to wait 15 goddamn minutes, and there's always a line. It's like, okay, bro.
Yeah, dude, that's what I was saying. It's like, oh, you're bitching that you don't have enough servants to fucking make your life easier. That is 100% what. That's why he wants people to go back to work. That's why they all wanted people to go back to work, so we could serve them 100%. And also, Bemke, I feel like I saw you back in the early days of the Vanguard commenting, because I remember your Mott's applesauce image. So if that's the case, appreciate you being a long time.
Yeah, if so, shout out to you for being a long timer. Thanks so much for the $5. Thank you also, Pet Rabbit, for the 99 cents. Really appreciate that donation. Thank you so much. Looks like we got another couple down here. Thank you, Pedro the Lion, for the $6.90. Want to listen live, but I'm very deep in a Phoebe Bridgers binge. That's awesome. I love Phoebe Bridgers. Big fan of her music. I know she is putting out a new album soon, so I'm really excited about that. Yeah, huge fan of Phoebe Bridgers. In fact, Zach and I saw Phoebe live in Chicago last summer.
Yeah, she played the Pitchfork Festival. It was tight.
Yeah, agreed. Oh shit, gotta ban this spammer. Get the fuck out of here, sexy chat.
Get the fuck out.
Thank you so much. Be Nice 2000 for the $5. The left-right debate is super limiting at this stage. No, neither side supports pot legalized. What? People seem happier when we're paid to stay at home. The left absolutely supports pot legalization. In fact, arguably, so does the right. It's a bipartisan consensus. A majority of Americans support pot legalization.
I think he's talking about representative.
Majority of representatives do too. Joe Biden doesn't, but it was on the Democratic Party platform to legalize cannabis before he took it out. It is the left-wing position to support cannabis legalization, and Joe Biden's not a leftist.
That's true, but I think we were just talking about how in America the binary is liberal and conservative, which is, I believe, how this person is framing it. So the liberal and the conservative Republican and Democrats are, maybe they nominally, rhetorically support it, but they haven't put it to a vote. They haven't sent it to Joe Biden's desk. They haven't forced him to do it. So I would just say that oh, did they? Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. But it hasn't passed in the House, where the Democrats have an even more massive majority.
The Senate passed it, and I don't know what happened to it after that. But the point is that the Democrats are not the left, and he says left-right debate. If he said Democrat-Republican debate, I would agree. However,
but didn't you just argue like 5 minutes ago that people say left and right in this country because that's the...
I explained why people do that, which is because of the media, which forces us to accept a binary. But that doesn't mean that the left is liberals or the Democratic Party.
Fair enough. I'm just trying to be nice to this commentator and understand what he was trying to point out.
No, I get what he's pointing out. I'm just offering my opinion, which is that people on the left do absolutely support legalizing pot. Trust me, I know a lot of people on the left, every single one of them. There's no division on that matter. In fact, even the entire Democratic Party supports legalizing pot. Again, it was part of the Democratic Party platform. Every single candidate on the Democratic Party stage supported it, except for Joe Biden, who won the nomination and then unilaterally took it out of the platform. So I would say that he's obviously not a leftist. He literally is the responsible for the drug war.
Yeah, I guess that's fair, but I just would, I guess, it's called, like, yes, we understand that the Democrats are right wing, but if we, I mean, I don't know. I get what the guy is saying, which is that like neither the Democrats or the Republicans will legalize pot.
Yeah, agreed. But as I said, the only reason why we accept that is because of the mainstream media, which forces on us this duopoly, which forces on us this binary. Just because the media and your average Joe in this country associates Joe Biden and the Democratic Party with the left does not mean that they are left wing. That's all I'm saying.
Right. And I would just say that that's part of why this person is saying it's limiting, right?
Well, again, if he had said Democrat Republican, I would agree, because there are so many issues where the Democrats and the Republicans are the same. However, I don't think that's necessarily the same when it comes to using the words left, right. There's a massive, massive amount of difference between the left and the right wing.
Interesting. I mean, I guess this is just linguistic semantics at this point, but we can move on to the next comment.
Right. Thank you so much, Sable Miner, for the $5. Really appreciate that super sticker. And I'm making sure we didn't miss any super chats here. I don't think we did. But yeah, thanks so much, everyone, for super chatting. Really appreciate it. Yeah, I don't think we missed anyone. So we can move on to our last segment. Let me pull it up, get everything ready. So today we're going to be doing a little bit of a throwback, guys, inspired by some recent secular talk throwback segments to old debates and stuff. This is one that I actually just saw for the first time in a long time. I forgot this even happened until a comrade on our Discord server, I believe it was Eddie Cappuccino, so shout out to you, Eddie, who reminded me of this. This is a real throwback for a couple of reasons. It's Krystal Ball back on Rising. So automatically we're going back in time a little bit to back when Krystal Ball was on the Hills Rising. But if you can believe it, she's actually, this is from before Sagar was a part of Rising. If you remember, for a brief period of time before Sagar went on Rising and met Krystal, she actually had a co-host. I think his name was Buck Sexton, which is a funny name, but he's still a commentator. He's like a right winger. Yeah, this is back when she was doing the show with him. So super interesting. And Candace Owens and Charlie Kirk come on here. It devolves pretty quickly and just turns into a total food fight. Really, really interesting debate here. Little discussion. I'm excited to break it down and get your opinion. Zach, I'm assuming you haven't seen this one yet.
I haven't. I do know who Buck Sexton is, and I actually didn't know until right now that he was the original co-host of Rising. That's fucking hilarious. I'm going to resist the urge to make some ad hominem attacks about his appearance and just play the clip.
Yeah, let's take a listen to this. I'm excited to hear what you guys think about the substance of this debate, because I think there's a lot of revealing answers here, especially from Candace.
To talk about the intense state of politics right now, we have Charlie Kirk, founder and president of Turning Point USA, and Candace Owens, Turning Point's communications director. They're in Washington to meet with the president. Welcome to you too. Can I just first ask, what is this event, and what are we going to be seeing the next couple of days here in DC?
You know, we had received so much interest over a period of time in this sort of youth Black conservative movement. And it felt like we really wanted to harness the power and the opportunity and invite everyone to DC, first and foremost, to bring them to conservative ideas. A major hurdle that the Black community faces is not having the resources to get to different ideas and sort of being locked inside of a bubble. And having them listen to speakers that they perhaps haven't heard before, Dr. Ben Carson, Larry Elder, people who are routinely mocked in our community. So this is the first ever opportunity to do that in DC. And we're really excited that it's happening this weekend.
Charlie, what are you hoping that the president gets out of these interactions?
Well, I first want to take a step back and just give Candace Owens credit for changing the national conversation around these issues from a conservative kind of perspective over the last year. When I first met Candace, one of the first things she said, Charlie, I think we can have a young Black leadership summit that can be a lot bigger than any of the, pundits or the consultants would ever dream. And I mean, tomorrow, 400 plus young Black leaders from across the country. That's an accomplishment that, especially of a conservative, tilt, if you will.
And the number could have been much higher.
That's right. And so the number could have been higher, and it was the last minute influx of interest. And we had probably 5x that in applicants and in inquiries. But what Candace Owens and our urban engagement director, Brandon Tatum, have done at Turning Point USA to really garner more interest amongst the Black community for conservative values, I think it's worth having the conversation. And it's something that, given all the recent, news and attention around these issues, I think is something that will be quite interesting tomorrow.
Candace, there's obviously a bit of skepticism. As long as I've been in the game of conservative politics, as long as I've been a conservative, which is probably about sophomore year of high school, there have been conversations about how do conservatives win over more of a Black community. There have been some prominent leaders. You mentioned Dr. Ben Carson, others who have come forward and have tried to get this conversation going. What are you seeing that's different now, really? Like, why is it? I mean, to Charlie's point, he's saying that you've changed the conversation. How and why is the conversation different?
It's funny that you say that, because I was able to meet with Dr. Ben Carson early on this year, and we spoke about that. Like, what are the differences? Why are people paying a little more attention now? And I think that, and to his credit, in the past, the conversation was almost so intellectual that it was hard for people to digest and process and to understand. And because the left had won the culture war, it was easy for them to mock them, to see a skit.
Did she just say that Black people weren't associated as much with the Republican Party because the discourse was what'd she say? Let's go back.
In the past, the conversation was almost so intellectual that it was hard.
So he's like, why do you think only more recently Black people have started to become interested in Republican policies? And she's like, well, beforehand, it was just too intellectual. Now we've dumbed it down a lot. So these Black people can, they can also get on board. It's like, do you even realize how racist you're being right now? Just talking? Fucking crazy.
People to digest and process and to understand. And because the left had won the culture war, it was easy for them to mock them, to see a skit where perhaps Dr. Ben Carson or Dr. Condoleezza Rice are being mocked. And I think I'm a little more of a fighter, definitely in terms of starting my channel on YouTube and wanting it to be colloquial and wanting it to feel familiar, like you were talking to your brother and sister, and sort of taking back some of the turf that was lost on the culture war by making fun of people on the left in the same way that they make fun of us. I think that sort of helped bridge the gap and make people more interested in having the discussion.
Does it bother you that there's no prominent African Americans in the White House itself? Do you think
Sure,
that's
there is.
important?
Jaron, Dr. Ben Carson's part of the executive branch. That's not true. That's not true.
Within the White House
Jaron
itself.
is an executive with
Jared
Kushner.
What is his role?
He's a DAP, which is a deputy assistant to the president of the United States, which is the top tier. So that's not true.
Who are other individuals
There's
in the White
one
House?
Black person in the White House. Trump, I swear to God, he's a real ally of the Black community. This is one random ass guy that's associated with Jared Kushner. Don't worry.
I want to go back and answer your question. So, one thing that we always speak when we speak to conservatives about is we have to stop believing in this illusion that because somebody is Black, they represent my interests. Mm-hmm. We learned that lesson via Barack Obama. I mean, he was in the White House for 8 years and didn't do much for the Black community.
Oh yeah, because Ben Carson really does represent the Black community's interests.
Yeah. So I'm really interested in your perspective here. Yeah. So to you, having you don't look at it is an administration that has more white men than past administrations have had. Yeah, but that doesn't bother you. Don't think that diversity is important?
No, not at all. I think that we have to stop believing that diversity is the color of people's skin, because if you have the Black Caucus, for example, which didn't stand up and applaud when Trump announced that we had the lowest ever unemployment in the Black community, that's concerning to me. So a big part of the conversation that we open is in making people understand that's an illusion that the left has sold, that somehow because somebody matches my skin color, because somebody matches my gender, they have my best interests at heart, and that is completely fallacious.
I have to ask about Kanye. You two have been seen, photographed with, spend time with Kanye. I got a tremendous, we had to speak about it on the show, got a tremendous amount of attention from the media from a recent meeting in the Oval Office. How does he factor? Look, I feel like conservatives play this game that we go back and forth. If anybody who's famous starts talking in any way that conservatives like, we embrace them right away. And then sometimes we feel like we get burned later. They're not as conservative as we thought. Kanye has such a huge megaphone. He's obviously somewhat of a controversial figure as well, based on what he said in the past. Charlie, I just start with you. How does he play into all this other than, I want to hear from both of you on this, but how does he play into all this other than just getting a lot of attention? You know what I mean? How is he changing the conversation?
I'll be the first one to admit, I was your typical macroeconomic loving kind of conservative individual that wasn't part of the culture that,
you got a high paperback in your bag.
I know what I mean. Like I became a conservative based on reading Free to Choose and Ludwig von Mises. And I think it's amazing that someone like Kanye West is broadening the conversation. And it was Candace that opened my eyes to this. And I wasn't that I was resistant, but I was like, really, Candace? Like, wait, what do you mean that we can? She said, no, you don't understand. From the first time I met Candace said, Charlie, Kanye West can change the national conversation on these issues. And I think that he's more of a Trump supporter than people give credit. I can't.
Actually, it's funny because Charlie Kirk had the right instinct, which is to be like, do we really want to associate with fucking Kanye West? Do we like, is this really going to help us as a movement? And she's like, oh no, he's great. Let's buddy up to all the celebrities we can, Kanye included. How's that worked out? Kanye really proved to be a big asset of the Republican Party, right? Really one of the most articulate champions of Republican values for sure.
Bro, as a resident Kanye simp for this podcast, I do feel the need to chime in. Look, do I think it was like it could have been done better? I understand the political inclination to want celebrities to vocalize support for your political project, right? In the same way that I thought it was good that Bernie Sanders, touted Joe Rogan's endorsement, even though I have the litany of criticisms of Joe Rogan that I do have. So to give them credit on that ground, I guess I could have seen where they were going. Only Kanye being Kanye, it just turned into the biggest ego fest. Then he decided he himself was going to run for president. It was just all fucking crazy. And just giving these real, and obviously, I want to be a little bit respectful just because clearly the dude's mentally ill, right? But he giving these really manic diatribes about not wanting his wife to abort their baby and doing those kinds of weird speeches for crowds when he was running for president. It just devolved into such a weird thing. And honestly, I had no idea until watching this clip that Candace Owens and Charlie Kirk are responsible for Kanye's, thrust into politics and getting on Fox News and all that shit. This is blowing my mind. Also, is it just me or does Charlie Kirk have a voice that just reminds you of nails on chalkboard? The dude just fucking drones and pisses me off, but we have, 8 more minutes to go. So I'm going to suffer through.
Oh God, he's so insufferable to listen to, honestly. And as much as I disagree with Candace, you can't deny that she's a better commentator than he is. She at least has that ability to speak in a commanding and compelling way, even though, like I said, what she's saying is just garbage.
Right, it's commanding, but it's also soft and listenable. Whereas Charlie, you just want him to shut the fuck up. That's what's so nefarious about somebody like Candace Owens, is you might actually see how a layperson with no fucking political understanding would, go, oh, this is a pretty woman who's telling me nice things and leading me down the right path, right? That would be whereas Charlie Kirk is pretty obviously a fucking dunce.
And this is on record with our friend Dave Rubin saying this back in September of 2017, kind of predicting the Kanye movement, I guess you could say.
The Kanye movement.
Yeah.
I'm going to use that word, and I think that's true.
I've sort of followed Kanye's career for a very long time. So when I was asked that question of who I admire, I said Kanye West, because he's always been long before.
And again, the only real hypocrisy is that the right wing, as soon as the left holds up any celebrity, anyone from Hollywood or anything like that, they're like, all you have is celebrities. All you care about is elites in Hollywood. You don't actually care about normal people. You're just the party of Hollywood. And then as soon as any entertainer, any Hollywood celebrity comes out as a Republican, they could not fucking embrace them more.
Bro, Kyle just put out a fucking clip 45 minutes ago. We were already going live, so nobody, what? Yeah, and I just wanted to break in. We'll finish this and everything, but it had the exact same headline that we used, which I just thought was interesting. Joe Rogan's subreddit, all capital letters, turns on him. Oh, Kyle may have been watching the Vanguard for a second, guys. Hope he was. He put out a clip. He reacts to David Dole's content in it. Maybe we'll get around to it, but very interested to hear what he's going to have to say about his good buddy Joe.
Yeah, I do want to get to the explosive part of this real quick, but I'm down to react to some of that afterwards if you want. Okay, cool. Yeah, stick around, guys. Sit tight. We're going to finish this up real quick, and then we're going to watch some of Kyle's new video about Joe, because we were just talking about how Kyle's community constantly calls him out for simping for Joe Rogan and defending Joe Rogan. So let's see if maybe that's done. And Kyle's now, in no uncertain terms, going to go after his good friend Joe. Just like Bernie, Kyle also has a good friend Joe.
Personality wasn't going to be able to exist comfortably on the left anymore, because we are now being told what to think, how we have to think, who we have to love, who we have to hate. And that's not comfortable for anybody that's an artist. And their stranglehold on culture is really what Kanye is sort of taking a stab at. Now, I want to be clear, based off of my conversations with him, he's not a Republican, and I think that that's an important thing to distinguish and to make clear distinction to make, because in many ways I've said I'm not a Republican either, but he is a free thinker and he values ideas. And unfortunately, if you believe in the ability to think and to have a dialogue, that is a position that's on the right today.
So Candace, I do want to ask you about news of the day. Obviously, we have all these explosive devices that have been sent to prominent critics of this administration.
Right.
And in a tweet, you originally said you thought there was zero chance conservatives sent bombs. I think you took that tweet down.
Yeah.
But you later added, it isn't conservatives that are chasing people down in offices and restaurants. It isn't conservatives that have weaponized sexual assault as a means to political gain. I stand by my opinion that when it comes to political violence, the left is the likely culprit.
That's correct. So we've seen that.
So you think that it was the left or Democrats who sent these spike bombs?
I think we're all entitled to have an opinion. We don't have any facts surrounding this, and Twitter is a venue where you're allowed to express your opinions and beliefs. And
but certainly, so that's not based on any facts. That's just
of course
your
it couldn't
belief.
possibly be based on facts. We don't have any evidence other than the fact that they're investigating it. But
I'll cover Candace's.
I do want to finish this by just saying that it is my belief, when you take a look at the conversation, the things that have gone on and the increasing violence that's gone on, it has purely been a leftist tactic to stall things, delay the administration, and to fearmonger. So as a matter of opinion, I do believe that when we get to the resolution, the bottom of this, and we do have facts, we're going to see that this is orchestrated by the left. But by no means is that opinion rooted in any proof, because we don't have anything yet.
I could certainly point to Charlottesville. I could point to other acts that happen. I could point to Dylan Roof. I mean, there's certainly acts of violence that have come from.
But do you see how far back you have to go to do that?
Charlottesville?
Yeah, that's literally starting at the beginning of his administration. Look at all of the things that have gone on.
I don't want to have this debate, because ugliness can come from both sides.
No, I'm just saying that you brought it up.
I do want to ask you, though,
just answering the question.
I mean, you've got a big platform.
I do.
Right? And you have a powerful voice.
Thank you.
And kudos to you for creating that.
Thank you.
How do you view the responsibility that comes with that?
I view the responsibility of just being a person that maintains my ability to have an opinion, that I express an opinion, and no means that I say that I have just found the facts and this is related.
Yeah.
And I always
so there's 0% chance.
Yeah. I said I'm going to go out and say that there is a 0% chance that this was sent by conservatives. I find all the things that are going on, the caravan of illegals, the packages that are being sent,
and you think you think the caravan too was organized by Democrats?
I find it to be incredibly suspicious timing, so that they are meant to get to the border on the day of the election. Again, this is not rooted in facts, but you do have to understand.
As if the minute an immigrant reaches the shores of America, they immediately have the right to vote. And it's like, yep, here's the ballot box, cast your vote for Hillary. Like, bro, even if there was this caravan, which obviously there wasn't, now we're a couple of years down the road and everyone realizes that for what it was, which was a total fucking boogeyman, a total fear mongering, Fox News talking point. But even if it was true, even if the caravan had reached America on election day, those people wouldn't have just been automatically able to go vote for Democrats. Like, what the fuck are you talking about, bro? Anyway.
Yeah.
And Twitter is my platform.
Candace, I have one more.
Just one more here, because I wanted to get to know you before you came on. And I'm really interested in your perspective, because I think you're a fascinating person.
Thank you.
There was another tweet that said the Democratic Party is comprised of racist white liberals.
That is correct.
Am I a racist white liberal?
Well, let's go back. And let's say, I will say this, that many people in the party are not aware of their own racism. Let's go back to an early part of this conversation where you said to me, are you concerned about the color in the White House? Why would you ask me that question?
Because you speak about Black issues.
No, but why would you ask me? But let's get to really the nucleus of this. Why did you ask me that question today?
Because
why did you feel I needed to be concerned about that?
Because you're bringing a whole group of young African-American leaders to the White House.
Okay, so this is something that I talk about often, is that in many ways, white liberals don't realize that you put on that the racism and the conversations that we have.
So you're saying I'm a racist?
You haven't let me finish my statement. You keep cutting me off.
Go ahead.
Okay, the emphasis that you place is always on having a discussion about race. Okay, you guys are insistent on having a conversation about race and telling us that we should see and implying that
they literally came here to talk about race. Like, They came here explicitly to talk about black people and Republicans and how now there's more black people that are Republicans. Krystal Ball asks a question that is directly tethered to that concept. And what does Candace Owens immediately do? Calls her a fucking racist, which is what these people always accuse the left wing of doing when they don't have an actual substantive rebuttal. You know, what do people like Candace Owens and Charlie Kirk say all the time? They always say, well, all the left has is the race card. You know, you talk to a lefty, and if you get to a certain point and they disagree with you enough, they're going to call you a racist because that's all they have. What did Candace Owens literally just do? All she has is to call Krystal Ball a racist and say, well, you're a racist because you asked me this question. Actually, you're a racist. It's like, you're doing what you constantly criticize lefties for doing. This is all you have, is calling people racist, even though that's what you constantly criticize us for doing.
Do you know what it kind of reminds me of? The remember when we interviewed Scott Shellady on the fucking podcast? For people who don't know, this guy Scott Shellady was from early Vanguard. He's the guy that's like a regular on Fox Business, and we had him on to debate like fucking capitalism or something. I don't remember. And we're in the middle of this fucking debate, and he brings up healthcare, right? And he's like, talking about and he was like, he pivots to healthcare, and he was like, well, if you want to give everybody a unicorn and a fucking pony, and I was like, unicorns don't exist, real healthcare does, and you can provide it for everyone. And then he's immediately like, I didn't even come here to talk about freaking Medicare for all and all these things. It's like, yeah, you brought it up, guy, and then I fucking brought the hammer down on you with your dog shit point, and now you want to fucking throw your hands up and be like, I don't want to talk about this anymore. That's exactly what Candace Owens does, and it is a trademark tactic for the right wing. And I noticed we did get a super chat that I do want to respond to, because I know it was a good faith super chat about like why we're reacting to this if it's old. Because Gavin and I are media critics, guys, and just because something happened a while ago doesn't mean that it's not relevant to the history, right? The same reason you might read a book that was published in 1982 by Noam Chomsky. It's 2022 now, but the insight that he's gleaning, and even though the articles that he's citing from are old, like, you still glean value from things. Just because a book was published 10 years ago doesn't mean that it's no longer filled with relevant information. Just because something happened on the internet a few years back doesn't mean we can't glean valuable insights into how people's behavior changes over time, how people's conviction has always been the same. If you look at Krystal Ball and how she's composed here, she did her homework, she's pushing back, she's willing to be in the Shark Tank with 3 fucking hardcore Republicans and be the only one defending her value, and she doesn't take shit from any of them. All of those kinds of things. And then also just hearing and understanding the long-time formula of somebody like Candace Owens. So I get it if that's not your vibe, Andrew, but that's the point that we're making, and I think it has value.
Yeah, plus, like I said, I totally forgot this exchange ever happened. Zach had never seen it. I think a lot of people in our audience aren't familiar with the fact that Candace and Krystal actually went head-to-head at one point back in the early days of Rising. So, I just think, again, a lot of people aren't aware of this debate. So I wanted to spotlight it. Plus, you put Krystal Ball, Candace Owens in the headline, it's going to get some clicks. So, just kidding.
Race everywhere, and I don't agree with that. If you don't look at me according to the color of my skin, you would simply ask me how I thought that Trump was doing as a president. But instead, you try to drum up a conversation that surrounds.
You literally came on here to talk about race.
You're bringing a whole group of young black leaders to the White House.
Color, I don't.
That's something that's important to you.
Well, why are you talking about
color? I don't.
Why make it
at the very beginning of this interview, she starts off by talking about, like so many more black people are joining the Democrats, and it's thanks to me and Ben Carson, and isn't it great that black people are now Republican? And then 10 minutes in, after being lightly pressed, I don't see race, I don't see color. What's a black person? I for all I know, we're all white people. I don't even know what that means. It's like, bro, your whole premise as a fucking commentator is that you are the black Republican. You are the black friend of the GOP. Don't act like it's fucking crazy that someone's going to question that premise. Not even question that premise, just bring up race. And then you, again, turn around and do the exact same thing, which the left, you always pretend the left does, which is criticize people and accuse them of being racist when there's no grounds for that accusation. Totally hilarious.
That you're going to bring young black leaders to the White House. I mean, this is sort of absurd.
Because the media,
this is absurd. You're bringing this group to the White House.
It's not absurd. I'm making perfect sense.
I just want to be clear.
Yeah,
I just want to be clear.
I'm trying to be extremely clear with you.
I know.
Bringing the black conservatives to the White House.
Me as a racist white
I think
liberal.
that you're not. First off, you put those words in my mouth, and you keep saying it. So I'm not. I said that the Democrat Party is comprised of racist white liberals. Is every person in the party racist? No, but you're not aware of the fact that you put these racist tones out into the media. This is why we have to bring the black conservatives to the president, because you create a narrative when you're on TV like you did today.
Are you comfortable with? I'm going to have you on video later because I have questions for you as well. But we actually have to get out of the segment now.
Do you think that language is helpful, though? I mean, just in terms of the national conversation.
Well,
conversation.
I could ask you, do you think it's helpful to ask me just because I'm a Black woman if I'm comfortable with the amount of color that's on the administration? Do you think that that's helpful?
I think it's helpful and interesting to know your perspective.
It's not. It's you just trying to create an undertone that Donald Trump is racist, and it's wrong.
No.
Okay.
That to me is the reason why.
Listen, no.
I just want to say,
you're looking at me on the basis of my skin color, making a bunch
This
of
is the exact thing that like. This is word for word verbatim. This is the finger wag is the perfect fucking pause point too, because Candace Owens is embodying right now every criticism that she's ever made of the left, right? The finger wagging, that keep moving the conversation, making everything about race, fucking everything. When she literally came here, she literally says at the beginning of this interview, as Gavin pointed out, the reason that Black people weren't Republicans before now was because it was just too academic, too intellectual, too non-colloquial or whatever the fuck. It's like, oh, that's what you're going to say about that. And then you're going to say, well, we are trying to get 400 Black Republicans together at this thing tomorrow, right? And Charlie is so proud of you for getting all of this Black engagement. But the second she pushes back on it, like, this is racism, this is prejudice. Like, this is exactly what the right wing pretends the left is. They always are their own caricature.
Here's what I want to say.
You quoted a tweet and then you made it about me.
I appreciate.
So you were not added, but you were not added in that tweet. So do not say that I called you that, because that's dishonest. And we are on TV, so you can run
racist.
Okay, so I did not call you racist. You're using the typical leftist tactic of trying to make yourself a victim, which is not what I want to say.
No, but we're actually well beyond.
Well, she's making herself a victim and pretending that I came here and called her racist. So this is a typical leftist tactic.
That we not demonize our opponents.
And I think it's important that you not demonize my president.
And one thing that I try very hard to do is to criticize the policies and criticize people who are in positions of power.
I'm not sure how you were doing that by pointing out the color in the administration.
But not to criticize the people who support the president.
You literally
That's something I try very hard to do.
But you're not doing a very good job of it.
And I think it's really important.
I think it's really important that you be aware that just because I'm a Black woman, you don't need to ask me a question as basic enough as saying how much color is in the administration.
To demonize our fellow Americans?
I think what's problematic is that you are creating a simulation that is dishonest, that is accusing our president of being racist based off of the color of the letter in the. That's exactly what you asked me a question. That's what you implied.
Okay, I actually really appreciate you two coming in very much, and I look forward to getting to ask you some questions of my own at some point later on. And we're gonna have to end the segment there. But thank you, and good luck at the White House today. And thank you.
Buck Sexton's like, oh, please don't. I'm not trying to burn this bridge. I actually like you fools. Unlike my co-host Krystal Ball, who smells your bullshit immediately and called you out on it. But yeah, hilarious exchange. Obviously, for one, it just went off the rails, and they're talking over each other and stuff. But as we pointed out, Candace Owens, it didn't even take her 10 minutes to devolve into the exact caricature which she and her ilk paint of the left constantly, ad nauseum, every time it comes up. So pretty revealing, pretty hilarious. And I do have to say, as much as I like breaking points, one thing that I miss from the old days of Rising is that I feel like they would bring on guests and they would really like chew them out. Like they really would get into these kind of heated exchanges and go to bat in a way that I don't see happen as much on breaking points. So if there is one thing I miss from back in the days of Rising, it would be those kind of exchanges.
Yeah, I think 100%. And I think obviously it's just more now having people that they are friendly with as people that, come on the show, especially in studio in the post-COVID era. But yeah, definitely an interesting exchange. Yes, breaking news that happened during Rising, not during Breaking Points, as the clip clearly illustrates. But, if you don't hate the past, you might enjoy that clip.
Absolutely. And thank you, Jonathan, for the $2. Candace really brings the NPC energy in that clip. 100%. She totally does, man. Super funny stuff. And I'm glad you enjoyed the throwback. Thank you also, Addie, for the 1999. Keep up the good job, guys. Thank you so much, Addie, for the kind words and for the very generous donation. We will keep up the good work just for you, Addie.
Yeah, thank you so much. Always appreciate the kind words and the support from you guys. But yeah, I thought that was a plenty worthwhile clip to react to, and I also thought that it kind of is a nice little piece for the history of Rising. Right, I'd never checked out a single episode where it wasn't Krystal and Sagar side by side, and I think it's good to know that Krystal is willing to swim by herself in the most infested waters. Right, that's the kind of thing that you hope for from a political commentator. Right, like I can tell you from firsthand experience, it's a little tough to be like 3 conservatives versus 1 lefty, even though I am myself, just like Krystal, I'm not going to fucking start spitting, Republican talking points, but it is just a little intimidating. I haven't had the added pressure of having them be three people that this is their fucking job, right? Like Gavin and I usually go 2-on-2 or something like that when we debate. But anyway, I thought it was
I'll bring 2 other people, so next time it'll be 3-on-1 if you want, Zach.
There we go. 3-on-1. Let's get it. Oh.
Anyway, thanks so much for the super chat, guys, and thank you also, Brent, for the $5. Are people like Jackson Hinkle grifters when they claim they are anti-imperialist yet justify Russia's invasion of Ukraine and sell Z shirts?
Oh yeah, I think that's a parody account actually for the Hacks and Stinkle show. Jackson Hinkle, I think it's a parody account. I'm not sure at this point, so I don't know. I would check with Hacks and Stinkle before you make any broad claims like that. I don't know what this Jackson Hinkle guy is selling on his show, but Hacks and Stinkle should probably know about it.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, Hacks and Jinkle is a complete fucking grifter. And yeah, 100%. 100% is a grifting piece of shit. Thank you also, Ramian, for the $5. Super sticker, really appreciate that. And yeah, let's watch just like the first 5 minutes or so. We're not going to make you guys sit through all 27 minutes of this, but Kyle Kalinske did just put out this new video about Joe Rogan subreddit turning on him, which again is basically the exact title of our stream that went live at least 10 minutes before he put out this clip. Not saying he ripped us off. I'm just saying he probably didn't, but let's be honest. Let's take a listen to this though. I'm excited to see the kind of tone he strikes, because again, if he's been paying any attention to his own subreddit, he would know that his audience ain't too happy about his coverage of Joe Rogan, or maybe lack thereof. The fact that he doesn't cover Joe Rogan when Joe Rogan is saying some whack shit enough.
All right, guys. So Joe Rogan's subreddit has turned on him. They've been very, very critical of him. Now, this is something, if you are, a public figure to one extent or another, this is actually, it's a very common thing that happens. I don't know what's going on in the Secular Talk subreddit. For somebody who does...
Sorry, the fact that we were just talking about that is pretty funny. And yeah, bro, it's obviously you don't know what's going on in the Secular Talk subreddit. They're calling your ass out like every other post. Every other post is like a laundry list of complaints about Secular Talk and how you're failing to modernize it or make it relevant or stream or do anything that would help promote your ideology and your channel on YouTube. So yeah, that is funny. Obviously you don't know what's going on in the Secular Talk subreddit.
Yeah, it's happening. What's happening to Joe is happening to you, Kai.
Politics and a talk show. I'm actually remarkably not plugged in certain respects. And, one of those ways
not
is
that remarkable.
Reddit. I never really messed around with Reddit. So it's possible my own subreddit hates me and despises me and comes after me. I have no idea. You guys probably know a lot better than I do. But the reason why Rogan's subreddit turned on him is actually very interesting. So David Dole talked about that here. I want to go through some of this video and we'll break it down as we go.
So first, here are his comments.
Damn, Kyle's just pulling a Vanguard and reacting to someone else's video. Interesting.
Bro, he's taking our fucking advice. We've screamed and hollered about him doing this shit for fucking ever, dude. I swear to God, I'm getting more and more convinced that he does keep an eye on our shit.
Well, not too close of an eye, because we put out multiple videos about his subreddit. But to be honest, though, I think the reason why he is reacting to David Dole here is because he agrees with everything that David Dole probably is going to say about Joe Rogan, but he doesn't want to say it himself. Again, he doesn't want to burn that bridge with Joe. So he's like, here's David Dole saying the thing that I actually feel, but am too afraid to say because I don't want to burn a bridge with Joe Rogan. That's my theory.
That he made recently on a podcast with Gad Sad about getting time off for a mental health day.
I lean far more left than I do right, because I grew up on welfare. I grew up in poverty. We had food stamps when I was a kid. I remember those times. I remember being poor. And I will never say that I don't believe in social services or a social safety net. I think that's crazy.
Unless it's a universal
saved
basic
my family,
income.
Saved me. And my parents worked their way out of it. My mom and my stepdad worked their way out of that and eventually got off of it and eventually did well. Like a friend of mine who's an employer, she employs people. And she was saying that like some of her employees are saying, I need a mental health day today. She's like, you're not sick. Get the fuck to work. Right. What are you talking? You want to get paid for this mental health day? Show the fuck up. Right. We're not talking about your parents just died in a car accident. No, you have a high level of anxiety today. It's this Roe versus Wade thing. I saw it in the news. I need a mental health day. Right. Fuck you. Show up at work. Show up at work and work harder. Get the fuck out of here.
You need to be a bit more animated, Joe.
I get so crazy about it because I know what it is.
All right. So before I even comment.
So this is Rogan. I think what Rogan says is true, that on the individual issues, if you go policy for policy, he does lean more left than right. but a criticism people have made of him and his show is that the focus is usually not on those left-wing ideas that he supports. It's more on right-leaning ideas that he supports. Obviously, wokeness and cancel culture is a very prominent issue that's on his show, if not every time, almost every time. And there's a lot of focus that goes on that. And when you focus on that, that leaves people with the flavor that you're more right-wing than left-wing, which is why there was that poll. And I think David Dole goes on to show this, which shows that a majority of Rogan's listeners lean to the right. So I definitely think that's going on here. He also has a conservative streak of, when it comes to some issues of work and like discipline and, I guess just discipline. When it comes to issues of discipline, he's very big on like the motivational stuff and like, hey, you got to bust your ass, you got to work hard, you got to pull yourself up by your bootstraps, no excuses, like that sort of mentality. Like he's friends with a lot of people who really embody that mindset, like that guy David Goggins and like Jocko Willink, like every day he gets up at whatever 4 a.m. or some shit, and he's like working out and his sweat is dripping and he takes a picture of it. And Rogan looks at that sort of stuff as inspirational. He looks at like the no excuses stuff, like cut the bullshit and just get to work. He looks at that as like inspirational. But there is a little bit of a contradiction there between that mindset and like paid time off, right? For whatever the reason may be. And I don't know how much he's reconciled that. He would probably argue those things are actually not contradictory. But in some ways, when you start talking about various policies, left-wing policies, they are contradictory. Like, for example, he was, when he was talking to Bridget Fetisi, and Krystal and I talked about this, he came out strongly against like paid paternity leave. Now, Krystal and I covered that on Krystal Kyle and Friends, and we did a video. The video did very well. Joe actually ended up watching that video, and he told me privately that I changed his mind, that we changed his mind, that, look, I was just talking shit with a friend, really. I didn't think through the policy in any serious way. And, you guys made good arguments. So that's good. I give him credit for that. Now, the next time it comes up, maybe he'll make an argument, a much more left argument on the issue of maternity leave.
Every single time Joe Rogan says something stupid, Kyle's like sending him texts like, bro, I need to keep defending you. Come on, say that you understand my position. Say that I changed your mind. But yeah, I mean, honestly, we don't have to watch much more of this. It seems like it's probably going to be the same old spiel about, yes, he was technically wrong here, but overall he's still right, which is, whatever. I get it. Kyle obviously has a closer relationship to Joe than we do. Obviously, he's been on the show multiple times, been in conversation with him, and even kind of pulled the strings in order to get Bernie Sanders to sit down with the guy. So I think he sees him as like a potential asset for the left. Like, the left shouldn't distance themselves too much from him, because in opportune moments, such as that Bernie Sanders interview, we can actually use him to our advantage, which to some extent I agree with. And again, I do think some liberals go over the top in their boogie manification of Joe Rogan. But yeah, it doesn't really look like we're probably going to get much new from Kyle, which is honestly the problem with secular talk these days, is that he just repeats the same thing over and over.
Yeah, he's gonna ball handle Joe Rogan a little bit and mildly criticism, or play David Dole playing criticisms, and then be like, I think David's making some good points where I would disagree with Rogan, right? Yeah, and it's just like, bro, you can't keep this guy literally just should shut the fuck up and go back to work. Go slave for your fucking employer. My friend is an employer. No fucking shit, dude. You're rich as hell. How many regular working class people do you work with? Oh yeah, my buddy that works at Walmart. Yeah, go fuck yourself, Joe. You don't have any regular friends. So that obviously, Kyle doesn't want to address any of that shit. He is shit scared from never getting invited back on Joe's show. Kyle, you haven't been on Joe's show in 2 fucking years, it feels like. And if you go back on, it's not going to save your fucking career. I'm sorry, but that's the reality. Joe's audience is right-wing as shit, and they only want you to come on so they can talk about how crazy the left is, because either you're crazy or you're talking about how everybody else on the left is crazy. Okay, that's going to be the role that you're going to fill. And I just think that this is the perfect embodiment of the case that we've been making for so long on the Vanguard, right? Of the way that the momentum has just been stripped from the left, and it has all gone back to the right wing, right? That we lived in like a little fantasy world for a couple of years, like 4 years, where a lot of the internet energy was on the left. That's thanks to Bernie Sanders. I don't care what the fuck you think about Bernie Sanders, but if you wanted energy on the left, that was the guy that got it there, right? On the internet. Now it's all evaporated. And you can watch with remarkable precision that arc go with Joe Rogan. Oh, I'm conservative. Nope. Bernie Sanders is riding the wave. I'd endorse Bernie Sanders. Oh, now I'm back to having interviews with guys like Gad Saad uncritically. Now I'm having X, Y, and Z guys on my show constantly. Now I don't support paternity leave. And go fuck yourself, Kyle. You did not change his mind. That was bullshit. He was passive. He was just appeasing you. I guarantee you the next time he has some right-wing fucker on his show, it's back to conquer your inner bitch. Get the fuck out of there. You didn't have a child, you fucker. You just shot a load. You get the fuck back to work. Like, that's the kind of shit Joe Rogan's going to go back to saying. 100%. It's the reality. And you can see the framing go on smaller channels, right? We talk about Jimmy Dore. Why do you think Jimmy Dore tries to pretend that fucking Tucker Carlson isn't corrupt and bullshit and like full of shit all the time? Oh, anybody that works at MSNBC or CNN is paid by the oligarchs, but at Fox News, they don't get paid by oligarchs, you dumb fuck. So that's why they're doing it. That's why they want to be like, well, Ron DeSantis actually said out of context this one really good thing. So then a bunch of right wingers who are way more active on the internet and have way more energy on the internet are going to be like, see, man, Joe's coming around to our side, bro. He knows the left is crazy. He knows they're all weak. He wants to conquer his inner bitch, bro. He doesn't want these pansy pussies coming out here taking our fucking hard-earned money, bro. Yeah. Why are you simping for him, Kyle? This is ruining your brand.
Yep, straight up. And honestly, I'd have so much more respect for his approach if when he actually was invited on Joe Rogan, he did push back and he did argue. It seems like Kyle used to have so much more of an argumentative kind of like debate bro mindset. I think honestly, after he kind of embarrassed himself in that debate with Charlie Kirk, I feel like that was the last time we really saw Kyle engage like that. And since then, he's been really afraid to debate people. But again, I wouldn't have any problem with Kyle's commentary as far as Joe Rogan if he actually broached those areas of disagreement when he went on the JRE, because I think that'd be great. Just like how when Ben Burgess went on the JRE, he actually pushed back on Joe a lot and it was like a back and forth. I mean, to be fair to Kyle, they have gotten in debates on the show about their differences of opinion, but it doesn't seem like he spends the majority of his time on the Joe Rogan, like really, pushing back or giving the left perspective. He kind of just gives into Joe's framing more often than not. So, it's a mixed bag. I have mixed feelings about it because it's easier said than done. And obviously when you're there at the studio talking to someone like Joe Rogan, it's hard to just go full debate, bro. When someone like that is so nice to you. So.
Wouldn't be hard for Vosh. And I don't even like Vosh.
True enough. But yeah, anyway, thanks so much for never mind. I was about to say thanks so much for the super chat, but
we do have a good super chat that I do want to get to though, because I understand where you're coming from, John. And I want to give you a full-throated defense.
Oh yeah, thanks so much, John McKinney. Really appreciate that. John McKinney says, I'm torn on whether or not I support free college. On the one hand, people shouldn't go into debt, but college is not for everyone, and there's a lot of college grads who are morons. That is certainly true. There is a lot of college grads who are morons. Before I let Zach give his robust defense, my just quick response to that would be that I agree, but I think that the solution to that is that we should also make trade schools free. It's not just colleges that should be free, because you're right. Not everyone, college isn't for everyone, not because some people are too dumb for college or whatever, but just because some people are going to prefer to go in a, more of a trade kind of route that, they'd rather become like an electrician or a plumber than a freaking, women's studies graduate or whatever. Like that's totally fine.
Shout out to my sister who's a women's studies grad. Oh, look, yeah, and I think he makes another point too, where he says, especially when the job they want doesn't require a college degree, i.e. filmmaker, actor, doesn't have to be Hollywood YouTuber who doesn't do politics. What's the solution to that? And Gavin touched on exactly what was going to be my sweeping defense of this, which was, the fact that obviously college isn't a solution for everybody. And I actually think that there are plenty of criticisms that you can make of colleges that, that I think we could easily solve. Let's stop treating our adjunct professors like shit. Let's start, making sure that it's the finances are being spent on education, on resources for students, on, tenuring professors, these kinds of things. And 100%, we also need to provide an easy, societally normalized avenue to the trades that doesn't involve the U.S. military. Because I think one thing that we forget about is the fact that the military is like trade school for people who want to go into trades, right? Let's use an example of somebody we've had on the show, Erica, the white trash socialist on Twitter, right? She was in the Navy, and when she came out, now she's a fucking electrician. And I remember during the trade shortage, she was tweeting shit like, I would just tell my boss to go fuck himself, and then I would go get another job as an electrician because we need electricians because we don't have enough of them, right? And it's a fucking job that we fucking need and should heavily value as a society, right? And it doesn't involve going to fucking econ classes and getting a lit degree, right? So we should make essentially what our colleges, we call them trade schools, free also 100%, but also normalized. And I also don't think, because American culture is so married to this idea of the college experience, I kind of don't like the fact that trade schools are often divorced from the college experience. I think it should be required that if you're going to get state funding, that a school like Kansas University or fucking wherever you are, Kentucky University or Kansas State, if you're going to be a state-sponsored school, I think you should actually have to have a trade program that is run by trade experts that will give you the certification that you need, that will find you employment. And it's not divorced from the college experience that, you know, you're so conditioned from day one to have. Now, we could have a separate debate about whether or not we should, you know, value the college experience as much as we do in America. But I do think that there's a class element to saying that kids that are, or adults that are going into the trades, they deserve that same level of transition into adulthood that rich kids get when they go to college, right? Those 4 years where you can smoke pot, drink beer, fuck around, and learn some hard lessons so that when you're done, hopefully you can fucking, you know, sustain yourself as an adult. So, you know, having a trade school that is just as much a part of the application process of going to college, right? Like, oh, maybe we don't care about your ACTs, but did you do anything to like fix cars, change oil? You ever worked as a porter? You ever work with electricity? Did you know, do any plumbing with your dad, or, you know, you done construction over the summers, whatever. Those are the kind of things that are more applicable, right? It doesn't matter how well you understand Moyer if you're just going to fucking go do electricity work, right? And that's not a dig, right? I've never fucking read shit for Moyer. I'm just using that as a French guy that has a fancy name. So that would be my response to all that. My full-throated defense would just be that, yes, we all value education in this country, right? And in the same way that K through 12, it's pretty much off the table that we would ever get rid of it. I think that you can fundamentally say we haven't baked the cake enough by the time that people are 18 to employ them, right? So that's why we have this concept of college. I think you just really reform it all, and the, you know, 13th, 14th, 15th, and 16th grade, that's college. And you know what? You get to go to the university. You can sleep in the dorms if you want. You don't fucking have to. You can go to the sports games. Everybody's a part of this, right? And it doesn't matter if I'm going there to be like an electrician, a welder, you know, a diesel engine mechanic, or, you know, a professor myself someday in something like literature, or maybe I'm becoming a doctor. Like, I don't think we all need to be fragmented based off of what our trade is going to be.
Right. No, I 100% agree with that. And such a great point too about the military. You know, because of the fact that we don't offer free college, it means that people whose parents aren't wealthy enough to afford them that experience, it means that a lot of those people have to, you know, join the military in order to get the benefits that come along with, you know, going to school and getting a career. So, yeah, great point. And thank you so much, John McKinney, for not only the donation, but the really interesting conversation starter. Thank you so much, man.
Yeah, and also, you know, appreciate you being willing to dissent, because it forces us to try and make a case, or you know, be honest about how you're a little on the fence. Like, we appreciate that about you, man.
100%. Thank you so much, John, as always. Thank you also, as always, Michael Williams, for the $10. If it interesting though that sorry, I think you just mean it is interesting though that people are more mad at Rogan's opinion of Roe instead of the Democrats for not making Roe a law over the last 50 years because they were using as a carrot to get votes. I mean, I think most people that are mad at Rogan's opinion are probably also mad at that. Like, obviously, the reason why we're talking about Joe Rogan is because we talk about a lot of media figures and other shows in this kind of space. So, yeah, Joe Rogan's a big thought leader. He has a massive platform, literally the biggest podcast in the world. So we're going to talk about his opinion, maybe more so than we do like the actual, you know, nitty gritty of the politics, just because that's the kind of show that we do. But overall, I don't necessarily, I think it's kind of a bit of a false equivalency. No offense.
Oh yeah, Michael, I massively disagree with you right here. And in fact, I think you've been fed a talking point. Frankly, do you remember all those people that were outside Kavanaugh's house? Do you remember the massive media earthquake that's been going on for the past 2 weeks? You know, that inspired Joe Rogan to say, "Oh yeah, these people are fucking crazy." Like, come on, bud. Like, I appreciate the $10 and I always appreciate pushback and stuff. But I mean, really sit with yourself for a second and scroll through the internet and see how many people are pissed off at the Democrats and how many people are saying, like, I don't even know if, like, normal people that are really pissed off about this. And then I think Gavin and I actually we kind of elevated this Rogan story. It wasn't like it was like, you know, his vaccine take where it was everywhere. Like, no, I think this is a little more niche, and I think that's the kind of way that people who, again, are trying to maintain their right-wing energy in their audience, they'll be like, see, the Democrats aren't even doing it, as a way of obfuscating any kind of criticism away from Joe Rogan and his right-wing talking points, and again, making it about the bad Democrats, right? So that would be my pushback to you, Michael, but thank you so much for the super.
Also, just anecdotally from people in my life, like family members and stuff who are just rah, vote blue, no matter who kind of people, even they're extremely pissed off about the Democrats for not taking a more aggressive kind of response here. So it's not just like, you know, far left anti-establishment muckrakers like us that are upset about that. No, it's actually like, good Democrats that
even
always
establishment people like my own sister.
Even like Gavin Newsom. I don't know if you saw that clip, but he was like railing on Pelosi for not like taking this more seriously. And he's like as normie of a Democrat as you can get. So again, really appreciate the $10, Michael. Just have to disagree with your premise a little bit, but certainly appreciate the conversation starter and the donation. And it looks like we got another $9.99 from Michael or John McKinney, although it looks like we already responded to that. So thanks for the additional super chat. I don't know if you meant to send that in again, but either way, we really appreciate it, John. And got one from Ariana. Thank you, as always, for the donation, Ariana. The solution is to decide that you want to invest in the betterment of humanity and not the idea that people go to college to become cogs in the capitalist machine. Now, that is 100% on point. And yeah, a lot of people that go to college do just become part of the capitalist machine. I got a film degree, but the only job I ever had in that sort of industry was editing wedding videos, which I was basically just a cog in a corporation, Toast Wedding Films. I wasn't making films. I wasn't, directing cinema or whatever. I was just a cog at a corporation. And yeah, a lot of college degrees, unfortunately, will just kind of funnel you into that direction. So yeah, we really need to invest in, like you said, the betterment in humanity and giving people not just the opportunity to succeed in our corporate landscape, but actually to make their own American dream. Like I was talking about, doing what you actually want to do, starting the kind of business that you want to start and pursuing the kind of work that you want to do if you so desire.
Yeah, 100%. And honestly, I just get big Star Trek visions, right? Isn't that what led to Star Trek? Like, I'm not a Trekkie, but I do like that one part of the mythology that, we actually gave up money and everything, and Star Trek just happens when we were all out for the benefit of humanity and, benefiting our minds and hearts and souls and shit, or whatever the fuck Star Trek is actually about. But Ariana, really appreciate the $10, but I even more appreciate that point, because it was a great point. And yeah, we don't need to be cogs in the capitalist machine. I never graduated college, but I know it was a good dig for some people. Gavin did finish. It doesn't necessarily dictate how it's going to turn out for you. But I do think that one thing that the left should always be pushing for is making it easier for all people to have access to more education. So that's where I fundamentally come down on the free college.
Absolutely. Thank you once again, Ariana, for the $10 and the question. And I think that just about does her. Probably one more thing.
Oh, I don't have, this isn't like a new story or anything. I just fucking saw Jordan Peterson and I was like, this is the priority of the right. Well, guys, when the right wing is telling you about authoritarianism, this is what they mean. So sorry, not beautiful, and no amount of authoritarian tolerance is going to change that. Like, what the fuck is the matter with you? Well, you can't handle a thick chick? This lady's smoking. But two, the replies have been great. Vosh says it's all right, sir. I like men too. Hasanabi gets in here and says, sorry, not beautiful, and no amount of authoritarian tolerance is going to change that. Imagine being so fucking fat phobic.
What's even his problem with this? Is it that she's like a little bit overweight or whatever?
Yeah, he thinks that she's fat, and so it's the woke liberal agenda that's giving her this position on the cover of Sports Illustrated, when it's not. Like, bro, have you ever gotten out of your house and watched like a modern music video? Like this is what women look like, and they still take their clothes off and they still look hot, and this is reality now. But it's just so wild that this dude is so afraid of any kind of sexualization. He's so afraid of any kind of female empowerment. And this is what he thinks is the authoritarian push that our country is under. Like, the fact that people take this man seriously at all, baffling to me. But anyway, I just wanted to go out with one final junk on Jordan Peterson. Talk about a missed. Just talk about a straight up miss. Like this, like.
Yeah, what a piece of shit. I had no idea about this. What a fucking despicable asshole.
Yeah.
Wow. Imagine seeing that have any problem with it whatsoever. God damn, bro. Anyway, looks like in the meantime, we did rack up a couple more super chats. So thank you so much, Will, for the $5. Please change my Vanguardian name. Sorry about the confusion. Yeah, send me a message about that, Will, and I'll do that right away. I'm going to forget the specifics. But
bro,
yeah,
that was your old World of Warcraft guild? I used to play the fuck out of World of Warcraft.
Yeah, anyway, Will, send me a message on Twitter. You can send it to my personal Twitter or the Vanguard, and I'll change that before the next time we go live. Appreciate it. And thank you also, Julian, for the $4.99. Candace legit giving me a headache. I'm guessing Julian went back in our stream and is watching the part where we're reacting to the Candace Owens debate. But oh, I know, bro, it was bad. It was hard to watch.
Oof, cringe.
And then another one. Here's a real head scratcher. Sorry, I can't talk. After the 2-hour mark, I lose my ability to articulate myself. I'm like Joe Biden. I just start. Anyway, thank you, Armando, for the 199. Do you guys believe Bill Maher is on the left? God, I barely even watch Bill Maher anymore. I mean, I guess he maybe has a couple positions that I'm sure. I think he's still in favor of like legalizing pot. So I guess there's that. There's a couple issues like that. But overall, at most, I would say he's a liberal. At worst, I would say he's a reactionary, like right winger with some liberal ideas at this point, seemingly. But I don't pay enough. I don't watch him on a weekly basis. I don't really pay enough of a attention to the guy to have like a firm opinion. But what I will say is that everything I've seen, all the clips and all the stories have been very cringy and definitely like tinged with that reactionary right wing flavor.
Yeah, I actually, Ben Burgess of all people did a fucking massive takedown about like Bill Maher is not a leftist. So, obviously he has some like opinions that would be on the verge of the left, but I just think at his core, he's a capitalist. He's going to fall for the right wing media machine. And like back in the day, he was kind of an outspoken atheist. So, and he also got behind Nader back in the day and like weird shit that would make you think that like he is a leftist. But I just think he's gone through like such a weird political evolution that I wouldn't claim him, right? I would just put him in like that weird ether where like a guy like Joe Rogan floats around is like they've been really impacted by talking points, and I don't really take a ton of what he says seriously, but I also am not like intimately familiar with what he's talking about on his show. I know he does a podcast now that I saw Freddie Gibbs was on for like 5 minutes, but that's all I paid attention to him.
Yeah, thanks, Armando, though. I mean, and the reason why we don't watch Bill Maher is because he's super cringe these days. Used to agree with the guy on a fair amount of stuff, actually, but nowadays it's pretty embarrassing. Thank you also, AJF Milan, one of our good comrades in the chat. Thank you so much for the $10. Please, lefties and progressives, I implore you stop using the word free. Use universal or public. The decision we want to chat about is either privately out of pocket or collectively funded method. And I think that's fair. I mean, yeah, because again, it's mostly coming from our taxpayer money, which is what our taxpayer dollars should be going to, is back into our communities to better our lives and communities. So yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah, and I think it's obviously people who use the term free, like they want to let people know like, hey, you will qualify for this because it is not cost prohibitive. But I also understand how the right just picks that up and tries to call the left the free shit party. And, they breed a bunch of talking points that Joe Rogan will go on to say on his show. So, yeah, thank you so much, HEF Milan. Always good to hear you and see you in the chat. And thank you so much for the donation.
Yeah, thank you so much. And once again, I agree. Publicly funded is probably a good idea, or universal college, publicly funded college. Yeah, it sounds more serious to your average person for some reason. But thank you also, Sam, for the $2. Thoughts on the new Kendrick? Loving the new Kendrick. Zach and I have both been playing that a lot over the weekend, really, soaking it in. It's a dense record. It's not as there's not as many like, bangers on it as some of his previous records. It's a lot more like dense and contemplative. Not that his other albums aren't like super deep also, but you know what I'm saying? It's a little bit more like you have to sit there and like unpack it versus just being able to like passively listen to it. So I'm really enjoying it. I know that some people have been a little bit more lukewarm, but so far I'm digging it.
I love it. I think it's a return to form in a big way for Kendrick Lamar. I love the production on it so much more than I loved the production on Dim. And I just think, he's had so much on his mind. And, Gavin said we've been listening to it a lot. We might even do a call-in about it. Just to shout out a couple of my favorite early on tracks. Loved Worldwide Steppers, loved Father Time, loved Anti-Diaries. Gavin, we were talking about Mother I Sober this morning. All kinds of great tracks, a lot of range on it. So good, so powerful. The technical proficiency of his rhymes, his structure, his delivery, everything is so high level that, I mean, it's just a treat to ever get new music from Kendrick Lamar. One of the greatest to ever do it. I would argue hands down, probably the best doing it right now. Just an extreme talent that Gavin and I cherish deeply.
You don't like Jack Harlow? I'm just kidding, bro. But yeah, no, I totally agree with that. And speaking of like lefty themes and stuff we talk about, definitely listen to the song and read the lyrics for the song. Anti-Diaries, really interesting statement about like trans issues and homophobia in modern society. Really interesting song. I know there's been a lot of discourse around it because of Kendrick's use of the F slur, which obviously, I'm not a gay person, so I don't have the right to come down on that one way or the other. But I think it's an appropriate usage and an interesting statement. I would definitely urge you guys to check out that song. I think it's a fascinating take on a subject matter that I wasn't expecting to see Kendrick Lamar address.
Yeah, and it's also crazy how intimately personal that experience is, and he's vulnerable on the record, guys. He talks about his own, misgivings, his own missteps, the things that he's done wrong, the conflict that he feels inside about these things. It's very, I don't know. It's supportive of the trans community, so I think that's important to say. And I wasn't massively triggered about like anything that he said on the record, though I know some people were. But I always think that, in this instance, it comes back to like the, in the intention and what's the point that he's saying, and just because like, somebody gave the example, just because like Steve Buscemi says the N-word in Reservoir Dogs doesn't mean that like he's a racist. Like, no, he was playing a character, and that this is a real, phenomenon that happens, kind of a deal.
Yeah, and because Kendrick's talking about the fact that when he was a kid, he did say the F slur a lot, just like I did and you did.
Every single fucking one of us did. If you grew up in the Midwest and you went to gym class in the 7th grade, like, we were all wrong. I'm not saying you should go ahead and do that, but I'm telling you that if you're like, nah, man, in 2010, I wasn't even saying that shit then. Like, I'm going to tell you were a fucking dirty liar.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, super interesting song, super interesting album in general. I'm looking forward to, continuing to really soak it in over the next coming weeks and days and all that. So yeah, really excited about that. Anyway, thanks everyone for tuning in today. We had a great show, hell of a show. A lot of interesting discussions had. What are your thoughts on Pod Save America? I don't really listen much to Pod Save America. From what I have, it's basically just like, Democratic Party propaganda. Like, isn't Joe Biden great? Isn't Kamala Harris awesome? Just kind of like basic propaganda for the Democratic Party. I think it's literally run by ex-Obama staffers. So, no offense to anyone that does like it or that does fuck with it. It's just not necessarily for me.
A big offense to you if you fuck with Jon Favreau.
Yeah. Anyway, that would be my thoughts.
They're like the neoliberal Chapo Trap House.
Pretty much, honestly, that's a great comparison. But yeah, much like Bill Maher, don't really consume a lot of it actively. I just get subjected to it every once in a while because people share parts of it. So yeah, not really my cup of tea, but again, if you like it, then that's cool. Anyway, thanks everyone for tuning in today. Got to shout out the Patreon community real quick. If you guys enjoy the content we create, please consider supporting the show. Zach and I are 100% independent funded. Don't take any money from sponsors, despite numerous offers to. So we really do appreciate the support from our listeners. It does make this show possible. 100% would not be able to do the Vanguard without our comrades and Vanguardians. So head on over to patreon.com/the Vanguard channel. The link is in the description.
Yeah, and also I did find out why people were asking about Bill Maher. Apparently he was melting down about people protesting outside of Supreme Court justices' houses. So yeah, fuck that take. That's pearl clutching bullshit. The same shit that Bill Maher, pretends to deride when it's coming from left-wingers actively trying to, bring justice to the world. But anyway, cheers to everybody for tuning in. Shout out to all the Vanguardians, comrades, etc. You guys make our show possible and our world go around. And, just hit that like and subscribe button, notification bell, all that jazz, housekeeping, all that.
Yeah, that's ridiculous about Bill Maher too. Like, at what point is it okay to protest outside of people's houses? Like, if they took away gay marriage, then would it be okay to protest outside their house? What if they took away interracial marriage? Like, is it still too uncivil to go to their house?
He called it intimidation tactics.
Yeah, fucking good. We should intimidate them to like enshrine our basic human rights. Are you fucking kidding me? They're about to take away a human right that's been afforded to us for 50 fucking years. Of course we should intimidate them into doing the right thing. What the fuck is the point of a democracy? Anyway. Jesus Christ, we could keep going for another hour, but
yeah, remember when we met up this morning and I was like, hey man, we'll probably do like a half hour, 45-minute show today, just cover whatever. And that's always what fucking happens. And then we come in, we're 2 hours and 15 deep. Gavin and I don't even know our names anymore.
Yeah, like I said, I'm getting into Joe Biden mouth to start fucking vomiting word salad all over you guys. But yeah, thanks so much everyone for tuning in. Really appreciate it. I thought we had a great chat today. And everyone enjoy the rest of your Monday.
Yeah, and we'll be back tomorrow probably on something.